It's time for MacBreak Weekly. We've got Jason Snell from Macworld Magazine, Alex Lindsay too, and we're going to talk about, yes, the Macintosh, the MacBook Air, iOS, and the future of the App Store on the Mac, and a whole lot more. Yep, MacBreak Weekly is coming up next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 219, recorded November 2nd, 2010. 2 hours you'll never get back. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Go to Assist Express. If you're in tech support, save time and money by supporting your clients and colleagues remotely with Go to Assist Express. For a free 30-day trial, visit gotoassist.com/MacBreak. And by Audible.com. To download a free audiobook of your choice, go to audible.com/MacBreak. And by Gazelle, the easy way to sell or recycle the used gadgets lying around your home or office. Don't just sell it, Gazelle it. For a 5% bonus payment for your used gadgets, go to gazelle.com and use the bonus code MacBreak. It's time for MacBreak Weekly. This is the show that covers all of the Apple stuff, the Macs, the iPods, the iPhones, the iPads. And with us here, as usual, from Pixelcore, pixelcore.com for that guild of multimedia artists, pixelcore.tv for their podcast, Alex Lindsay.
Hello.
Hello, Alex. How are you today? Welcome.
Feeling a little curmudgeonly.
Yeah, we're going to get to your complaints in a moment. But first, let me also introduce Andy Anatko, not with us today, but we're so glad. Batting fourth and playing for Andy Anatko.
I've got the jersey to prove it.
He's got the jersey to prove it. Jason
Yeah.
Snell!
Hello. It's good to be here.
Who is proud to identify with that local team that won that thing.
They won a thing.
They won the thing.
They didn't win it like for 50 years, and they won the thing.
Since before you and I were born.
They didn't just win the thing. They crushed the thing.
They did crush the thing.
Yay, local team.
Yay, local team that's closer than the team that they beat. Woohoo.
Yay.
Yay. We're being very positive
I feel
here.
free to root for the Giants because the Pirates will never be in the World Series again.
That's your normal local team. See, I'm a Red Sox fan going way back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Pittsburgh, we're just happy to sit at a really nice park and watch other teams come through.
I retweeted Disc Oppo and his tweet, which was, "Hurrah, the sports franchise located close to my physical location emerged victorious against one further away from me." That's pretty much what it is, isn't it? I mean, it's not like we won the game or anything.
No, I've had people congratulate me. I mean, they know I'm a lifelong Giants fan. I've been a Giants fan since I was like a first grader. So it's a huge deal. It's like one of the two sports things that I ever wanted to see in my lifetime. But at the same time, it's like, well, congratulations to me for sitting on my couch and watching professional players win a game.
Yeah, but you know, if
my butt did well.
It's if you follow a team for a long time, as I'm a Giants fan since we moved to California, so since 1971, and I was at the 1989 World Series when the earthquake happened, and then we got swept by the Oakland A's. Sad to say, I brought my 8-year-old son to the Angels World Series. He saw Barry Bonds hit a home run, and then he saw the Giants collapse. That was painful.
So water under the bridge now, Leo.
Our torture is over.
That's right.
And you know what? I don't care if we win again in another 50 years, but once once in your lifetime.
It's like the Red Sox winning in 04. It's one of those things that you could say you actually saw it.
And, I was actually pretty excited about the Red Sox winning in 04 for the same reason. It was just, now if the Cubbies win, we'll all be happy. Never going to happen. Sorry, Chicago. We are here today, though. We are gathered together to talk about the Apple news. And, one of the things we were talking about right before we start was your frustration. We use Google Docs for our show notes to share our...
And so do we. So I just want to say we use them as well.
We recently moved the company over to Google Apps.
And so did we.
Yeah, but you're not so happy. And Macworld did as well?
Yep.
I forgot to say, Jason Snell, Editor-in-Chief, Macworld Magazine.
Present.
I didn't really give you your full title.
Thank you, Leo.
Was that a painful move to move over to Google Apps for you, Macworld?
Honestly, a lot of us had been using it on the sly without the official approval of our IT department because we do a lot of collaboration. Google Docs, the nice thing about the word processor is we used to have to pass around like Word files, and now news breaks and we want to write a story really fast. You can have like 6 different people writing it simultaneously using Google Docs, and then in an hour or two, you've got a complete story. It would never happen that way before. So
that's a great argument.
That's been great.
Did you ever use Wave for that?
No, we tried, couldn't figure it out. Didn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Gave up.
Same thing.
Yeah.
But the same thing happened here, and I guess I gather the same thing happened at Pixel Core, which is individual users started using Google Docs. We use Google Docs all the time, so we said we might as well have a corporate, kind of make it corporate.
Yeah, and so that's
was
exactly
that a big mistake for you?
Yeah, it turned out to be a huge mistake. I mean, I don't know what the deal. I mean, it's the way, however they handle the login. So we all had our individual Gmails,
That's the
and we
problem.
got to a position where basically everything started with me opening up Dragon software in Google Docs, and I would sit there and dictate out things that needed to be started off, or the guys would all work on it, and it was easy. People would pass things around, everything would work. As soon as we went corporate and paid for the service, it has immediately broken. Like I literally just don't know how I'm supposed to get in. There's no easy way to get in, and I can't even imagine if I'm having trouble with this. I can't even imagine what a corporate user is going to think when they suddenly can't log in.
I'll tell you why I bring this up, because you said, "Gee, if Apple did this, it would work."
And I'll say that the .Mac has not been a success, but I think that they're in the process of revamping that. And
so,
the thing
that's the interesting question: is Microsoft has announced a cloud strategy. You can get Office in the cloud. Where's Apple in all this? Do you think Apple might want to do this?
Oh, I think they have to. I don't think I don't.
Is this why they're building the North Carolina facility?
I wouldn't be surprised. I think that you can't ignore the fact that you want to do this kind of stuff for exactly the reasons that Jason was talking about. You want to be able to do this. This morning when we were working on Twim, when we recorded Twim before this
Week in Media,
this Week in Media, I'm literally putting up the news stories from this morning, and Suzanne is filling them all out for the hosts while I'm working. And in 15 minutes, we went from all the news stories to all being done.
Right.
And that's the kind of stuff.
That's why we use Google Docs for that.
And it just and once you get used to producing documents on the cloud, it just seems insane that you're going to pass documents around. We're dealing with a company in Germany doing all this contract negotiation back and forth, and the fact that I have to send these Word docs back and forth just seem insane, because it's just like this, oh my gosh, I sent the wrong version, and now they're upset because it was the last version instead of the newest version, and they thought that I ignored them, and there's all this stuff that is that comes up just because we're not collaborating on something. So the idea of cloud is the future. We're still in that kind of rocky area, and this has been the last couple of weeks since the last month and a half since we switched over has just been mind-numbingly frustrating.
What's your experience, Jason?
I think Apple's got to do something here. You're absolutely right. If you look at the setup experience on Android, where you put in your Google ID, and in theory, everything sort of syncs. And yet Apple, although they have MobileMe, it's a $99 a year charge, so they can't assume that everybody who buys their products has it. And even if they create some sort of free model and then you pay for more, like Dropbox, if they did that, they could integrate it into all of their products and assume that there was a base level of online functionality on all their devices. You put in your iTunes ID, and it automatically syncs your contacts and your bookmarks and all sorts of other things, instead of having you upselling you to MobileMe. So I think they have to do it to remain competitive. The question is, when will they do it, and how will they execute? Because some of the more recent updates to MobileMe have not been bad. Like the MobileMe calendar is actually not bad.
It just got updated, didn't it?
Yeah, they've got a beta of it, and it's a lot better.
I love it.
Some of their other stuff,
but I'm not going to use it in lieu of Google.
No, and I use both too. I mean, I basically am paying $99 mostly for Find My iPhone.
Yeah, Find My iPhone. That's
and
really
bookmark
cool.
Sync.
Yep.
Yeah. So they've got to do it. It's just a matter of the details, and they've got to do a good job, right? I mean, iDisk is terrible, and I use Dropbox because it's so much better than iDisk, and they've got to get this stuff right. They can't just do it. They've got to do it right.
Apple has kind of ceded it to everybody else, because you can go through the features of MobileMe one by one, and somebody's doing it better. Gmail's doing it better than Apple Mail, and Calendar, and Contacts.
And you feel like they have it all sitting right in front of them. They have all these people that are willing to be tied into their devices. They're willing to be tied into this thing. They want to have, I want to have everything work ubiquitously across my iPhone, my iPad, my different computers, and so on and so forth. So you have people who are ready to do it, and it just hasn't been completely tied up. And obviously, no one's figured it out.
In a way, they've already lost, though, because, for instance, this calendar update is pretty cool, and I applied it immediately and updated my iCal and made sure that everything worked with that. But I was already tied in to Google Calendar, so there's no incentive really for me to shift over, right?
Well, I mean, to their credit, they do make sure that their stuff works with Google, and
right.
that's good. But there are also lots of Apple customers out there who don't get Google and aren't doing stuff with Google. And if they can reach those people, then there's still a lot of opportunity out there for people who just are never going to do this sort of thing, but they'll put in their iTunes ID. In fact, they don't even need to put it in; it'll just go there when they sync with the iTunes on their computer, and then it says, would you like me to sync all your bookmarks and contacts and calendars? And if you can assume that everybody's got some version of Mobile Me, and you can step people through, maybe keyed off of their iTunes account, they could really improve the customer experience a lot. And that's what Apple's about, right? It's supposed to be easy, and right now it's kind of a mess.
Right.
Well, and I think that the thing is that there's a whole new audience that's entering the Apple sphere when you look at the iPads and I think the iPad specifically is that that's a lot of, and there's a lot of people there that don't really interact with my parents don't know anything about Google other than how to search things, but they don't know anything about any of the other services that Google provides other than the website and not even the maps. I don't even think they use Google Maps. And so the thing is that I think that there's still we think of the market as saturated, but we are still way on the front edge of that process, and there is still 90% of the general population that is still accessible.
My wife calls that feature "Find My Husband."
You know what? Don't tell anybody, but that's how we track our kids. We're talking about the Find My iPhone feature. I'm showing this right now, and you can see where my iPhone is, where my iPad is. I can see that my wife is shopping. I can see that Henry's in school, and I can see that Abby's in school. So all in all, this is kind of like very Harry Potter, isn't it?
You know what's funny is I realized I think
that's almost worth $99 a year. I have to say.
Well, that's what makes it worth it for me.
Yeah,
I misplaced my car over the weekend. It was a little embarrassing.
That's a tragic story.
It's always right where you left it.
It turned out that it was right where I left it, and it took the Petaluma police to find it. So anyway, but I realized that after that, of course, I started searching for GPS units, and I realized that the cheapest GPS unit that you can put in your car is to find a place to install an iPod Touch. Because it's got the GPS and you use your Find My iPhone.
Oh, that's interesting.
Instead of paying for a service.
Oh, you could have done that with your car if you'd left an iPod Touch in there.
At first, my wife thought she had forgot her. At first, she thought she had forgot her phone in the car, and then she was worried about whether they would, open up the phone. But it was dead. But the point is that I realized, if you plugged it in, if you had
always be charged,
you'd always know where your car was.
Wow.
And it would be actually a lot cheaper than paying $39 or $49 a month for a LoJack service. You can't turn the phone off. But it's actually a much cheaper solution than with the Find My iPhone.
As long as it can see a Wi-Fi network, otherwise
no. The iPod Touch has the new one doesn't the new iPod Touch have a GPS in it?
I'm not sure if it does, and if it does, it still has to be on the internet in order to tell you where it is.
Right.
Well, then
so you have to get an extra iPhone. Just put an extra iPhone. Just stick it in.
Or like an iPad.
I don't know if it needs the
iPad.
I don't know.
Leave your iPad in the car. That's what you should do.
3G iPad. Just tape it to the dashboard. Nothing will happen.
It'll never get stolen. I have to say, I still have the iPad, but I've been using the MacBook Air an awful lot. How do you guys at Macworld like the Air?
Oh man, yes, I've got that. I've got that right here.
The 11-inch.
This is the 11. Yeah.
I think that's the one, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the Ultimate. Actually, this is the 1. What is it? 1.4, 1.6.
Do you feel it was necessary to upgrade?
I'll tell you. I mean, I tried the base model, and now I'm trying the Ultimate because we've got like 4 or 5 of them here. We had to test all the configs. Love the 11-inch though. I'm not sure for most people. If money's no object, the Ultimate's great because it's a little faster and it's got more RAM.
Faster, but I find the basic is fast enough.
Yeah, $9.99, great price, especially if this is a second system. This is your laptop. You've got a desktop, and you just want to.
By the way, only an Apple user would say $9.99, great price.
Well, in macOS 10, I mean, among laptops that run macOS 10,
it's a great price.
It's a great price, right? And if you want to pay less, then I always have this argument with the guys across the hall at PC World. They're like, "Well, you can get something much cheaper." It's like, yeah, but it's not a Mac. It doesn't run OS 10. I could get that. I would really rather not, and I think most Mac users are like that.
Yep.
Plus, the build quality is really good. It's a solid system.
It ain't a netbook. It's a netbook size, but it ain't a netbook.
Exactly. And the full-size keyboard is huge for me. I mean, I test drove. I've got a netbook down here under my desk that I test drove for a while, running OS 10. In fact, I hacked it on there, and the compromises you have to go through with the keyboard, and the fact that even the 11-inch MacBook Air is the exact same keyboard that's on all the other MacBooks, even up to the 17-inch. It's on the Apple USB and Bluetooth keyboards. It is Apple's keyboard. It's got the same feel. Mm-hmm. It's got the same shape. Your fingers aren't going to mistype because this is 8% smaller keycaps. It's exactly the same, and the screen is pretty good too because it's that high-res screen. So you don't even feel like you're sacrificing a lot of screen resolution, even though it's physically smaller, because there's still actually a lot of pixels on there, as much as the old 13-inch MacBook Air.
Right.
I have to say, my wife has an older MacBook, and I have to say I was typing on it yesterday, and I realized how much I like that keyboard way better than the chiclets. Like the older laptop keyboards.
This is all the new ones, including the Air, have this
chiclets.
The square keycaps.
Square keycaps and a unified.
Yeah, and the thing is the old one with the older keys, I felt like I was typing much faster, and it was just much more comfortable. And I was like, I haven't touched a keyboard like this keyboard for a long time. And I forgot.
I've forgotten about it.
Yeah,
I don't really remember what it was like.
I like the keyboard. I think it's pretty good. I can type really fast on it, and anybody who's comfortable with that keyboard, that's the nice thing about the new
keyboard. You like the new keyboard?
Not new. Yeah, I do like the new square keyboard.
Yeah, I like it too.
It doesn't matter to me that much. I mean, most of my heavy typing is all done with my microphone, so I don't have to type very long.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
It's your iPad?
No, with my iPad, just with.
Do you dictate or you just don't do any typing?
No, I dictate. I saw anything longer than about.
I just don't
6
write.
lines.
I just talk. I talk for a living. I realized a long time ago I can talk 10,000 words. No problem. Writing 10,000 words is like killing me. It's like kill me now.
Yeah, we have to make documents, and so when we do documents, though, usually I just put the microphone up and I just dictate the whole thing, and then I pass it on to somebody else who.
I like to.
They've actually gotten really good at what the dictation software Dragon does with my words, and they've gotten good at knowing what I actually meant.
Yeah. We're talking about Macs is what we're doing. Boy, I haven't done that in a while. We were talking about iPads and iPhones all the time. Now we're actually talking about Macs. I think that's pretty cool. Isn't that nice?
Yeah, it is. We get all these emails from people who are saying, "Hey, you're Macworld. Why are you talking about the iPad and the iPod and all that?" And it's like, well, can Apple do something with the Mac, please? And here we are. We did a newsletter last week that was like, oh my God, it's all Mac stuff in the newsletter. How could that be? It's great.
Yeah, it really is. It's kind of a nice feeling. And now, Jason, you haven't been around for a few weeks, so I just wanted to run by you the idea of the App Store. As I have to say, I've calmed down a little bit. At first, I was really concerned that this might be a trend away from an open Mac platform. Well, my attitude now is, well, we'll wait and see. But it's certainly clear a lot of developers and a lot of users are really excited about the idea of an App Store. What's your take on the App Store that'll be part of Lion?
It goes back to something. It'll actually even be before Lion, I guess. Early January.
Months,
we'll get it on Snow Leopard. Something we said before about the Google users and then the regular people. I think there are a lot of regular Mac users out there, and they're more all the time. Apple's selling more Macs than they ever have before. They keep having record Mac sales, and they say that half the people who buy a Mac in the retail store are new to the Mac entirely, which is kind of amazing.
Say one half?
Half of the retail sales of Macs in the Apple's retail stores are to people who have never bought a Mac before.
And
it's been that way for the last 2 years. Yeah. I keep waiting for them to not say that some quarter, and they just keep saying it. So for those people, a lot of those people are not trained to go look at sites and find software and download it and buy it, shareware, kind of the traditional stuff. They're not that savvy, right? But now Apple's trained them to look for this App Store model for the iOS. So it really opens up a whole new market to Mac software developers who, may be making a good living with the savvier people who are able to go find that stuff. But what about that other market that would never think about finding Mac software, but the idea of a Mac App Store might actually work for them? So there's a lot of potential there. I mean, there are a lot of pitfalls. There are a lot of rules that are in the agreement. So, it's a question about what's going to get approved and not. But as long as there's this other approach, so you can not get approved and still actually release your app. And then it becomes more about it's like trying to get your software or your book or whatever into the Apple retail store. If you don't get it in there, you can still sell it. It's not like the App Store. I think it'll be big, with some caveats. I think it'll be big because it'll reach a new audience.
Can I make my bold predictions?
Yes, bold prediction time.
So we'll see the App Store really roll out in 2011 at WWDC. Within 2 years, my prediction is you'll need to boot into OS 10 without it. So by 2013, you'll have it like what you boot into Boot Camp. Yeah. You'll boot into the old OS 10, but you'll have an entire
it'll be like
environment.
Rosetta. It'll like be the blue box. It'll be.
By 2013 is my prediction. So 2011 we'll see it just start to roll out. By 2013 you'll boot into it, and by 2015 it'll be gone.
And that's kind of was what I was thinking, and that's what I was railing against, because I thought, well, this is a move away from an open platform, but it is appropriate for Apple to look at how people use computers and make computers that are for the rest of us. That's what they've always done, right?
When we started, go ahead, Jason.
I'm not entirely convinced. I mean, Jobs is famous for saying at the D conference this year that PCs are like trucks, and they're going to end up as sort of special purpose devices. I'm not sure that the vision of kind of putting OS 10 in this kind of you boot over here approach is going to work for that, because there are a lot of pro uses for computers, and there will continue to be. So let me spin that slightly differently, as I think it's going to be a little like parental controls. I think that you're going to get Macs that are turned with the App Store sort of turned on.
It's like Simple Finder.
Yeah, and that's the basic use. And for who knows what that percentage is, 70, 80, 90, 50, who knows, percent, they'll never even think to flip on the thing that gives them unfettered access, which is what we think of today. But I think that's a process, right? First, they'll say a parental control that it was only App Store apps. And then the next one, it'll be maybe they'll boot by default into that. So I do think that there's some truth in that Apple wants to make this a simpler process for sort of the regular people who are out there. But if Apple's vision about the iPad and devices like that is the future, eventually those people are not going to be as big a component in the computer market. It's going to be truck drivers, and they're going to want to drive it the way they want to drive
it. They'll be truckers. We'll all be, a few of us will stay truckers. Stereo equipment was like that. For a long time, people would talk about all the speeds and feeds, and it wasn't so much about the music. And now it's so much not about how you play it. It's all about content, and I suppose that's what's.
It's because MP3s from a sound quality are so bad. Why bother investing in?
But if you're an audiophile, you're bemoaning this. You're saying exactly what you just said, which is, oh my God! I mean, the quality is terrible. How could people listen to this? Do people even buy stereos anymore? That's a minority, because Apple primarily made it so easy just to go point, click, put it on a thing, and listen. Whether the quality is good or not is secondary.
Well, and I think that the issue is that we're using the general population. We in the tech community use our computers much differently than the general population. I just always look at who's using it around me when I visit home, and the thing is, and how they're using it and what they're using, and everything they're doing could fit inside of the iOS. And the thing is they're not going to change for most of their lifetime. And what's going to happen is the applications that are in the iOS are getting bigger and more powerful, where they're going to do a lot of those things anyway. I mean, I think that I think that's the issue, is that we're using those computers differently. When I started using computers, if I wanted to have a graphics application, I wrote it. And so it was like I wrote it from scratch, because that was the only way I could get graphics applications out of my Apple IIe. And so the thing is that we're moving to a position where I think that not for us, but for the general population, the computer is an appliance, and it has lots of things that we want it to do. But it's no longer this thing that we may create things in it, but it's not in the same way that all of us who are on the show grew up doing.
No, but I mean, it's not. I finally had to recognize that that's old school, and maybe there isn't a future for. I mean, if you want to run Linux, you can run Linux. Windows is probably not going to change a whole lot. Although I imagine Microsoft looks closely at what Apple does and says,
And I just don't know. I mean,
for me, the question is this happening in the iOS? Is it happening in the Mac? I mean, there are a lot of people who want to say the Mac is going to end up evolving into something that's very much like the iOS. I'm not sure. Maybe Apple will keep the Mac around as that. It could evolve as that all-purpose device, or it could evolve as that truck. And that's what I'm not sure about, is that we may see the Mac meaning more and more professional kind of use over time. Because does Apple really want the Mac to be the thing that evolves into this new way to consume, or is that the iOS? I think it's the iOS. Now, maybe they collide. Maybe somewhere down the road there's a system that runs iOS or runs macOS, like Alex is saying, sort of, boot into the Mac part. And quite honestly, if I could get an iPad that had one of those little keyboards on it, so it was like an iPad laptop, or I could clip a keyboard onto it, because I'm a writer, I do need a keyboard a lot of the time, I would be into that. So,
well, I use my Bluetooth keyboard all the time with my iPad. I have one stand with the iPad, and I use my
that's
Bluetooth.
not an
I like
ideal
it, but it's not in your lap, right? If I'm on a plane or on the bus or something like that, or even in bed, the iPad and the remote keyboard won't work. You need it sort of together.
I will say I've started building little things that I've now started using on the plane, where I can attach my iPad to the seat in front of me. Each one is different. Some need Velcro, some need suction cups, some need, and I've been I have this little collection of things that I've started putting together where I can attach it. I'll tell you, a Bluetooth keyboard on your little tray with the iPad hanging from the seat in front of you, especially in economy, it makes actually economy a little bit more doable.
We just have to recognize that Alex Lindsay is not like you and me. He's just
he has strange ways.
He has strange ways, and anybody who would base their use case on what Alex does would be going down a very strange road.
I know.
You bring a box of crap with Velcro and stuff just in case.
Yeah, the TSA's got to love that.
It gives me something to do. I mean, I was on the tarmac for 2 hours in Phoenix, and it gives me something. I sit around fiddling with it, and it gives me something to do.
Okay.
I'm easily bored. I'm painfully ADD. It's not.
For the rest of us, I mean, it really is true that has to be a development platform. So,
but why couldn't you have that development? I mean, I spent all last week.
That's a Mac, right? That's the development platform,
right,
isn't it?
You just reminded me.
You need a desktop of some kind to write software with.
So far, but do you eventually need that if you've got an iPad and a keyboard and a development environment?
No developer is going to write software on an iPad.
You could do that.
Yeah, you could do that. Just like
not today.
No, not today. But what about a computer that's running iOS? Could easily power Xcode.
You think that the day is going to come when a developer, a video editor, a photographer doesn't want the biggest screen they can get, a 30-inch screen, doesn't want the most horsepower they can get as a quad or 6-way Xeon. I mean, that day is not going to go away.
I don't disagree.
Creators are going to want that high-end stuff.
No, I don't disagree, but I don't understand why Aperture couldn't run an iOS.
No, of course it can.
On a 30-inch monitor.
Of course it can, but it's not desirable.
Really? For a photographer who doesn't really know anything about...
You're nuts.
Who's not... For a photographer who doesn't know anything about what they want to do other than working on their photos and
Are you saying a photographer who doesn't want to use Photoshop?
Yeah. There's a lot of them.
There are... I'm not gainsaying that there are a lot of them. I'm not gainsaying the vast majority might want something really stupid and simple, but Apple has to support at least developers, or nobody's going to write software for this crap.
No, I'm sure they will. It's just a question of what that fragment of the market is that demands that stuff. Because I'm sure you'll be able to edit. I mean, you can edit video now on an iPhone, and I realize it's primitive, but it's there now on that hardware. And so if you look out a few years, you'll be able to do a lot with the iOS. I think there's still going to be that percentage, right? And I don't know if it's 10% or 20 or 30 that will want that extra that Leo's talking about.
And there's a risk.
You gotta support that or abandon it, and I don't think Apple will do that, but they might. It's possible.
But this is the risk inherent in treating your users as consumers as opposed to creators. Is that you could actually read the creators out of your user base, and by doing so, kill it.
Well, I guess one of the things that I look at is when I was at ILM, a lot of the artists that first came in to do character animation were all they were traditional artists. I mean, they literally were cell animators. And that's where you got most of them because they understood motion, they understood weight, squash and stretch, so on and so forth. They knew nothing about the Unix infrastructure that they were working on. They literally the application would open and there'd be big balls that they could grab onto and move the character around, and there'd be all these things that they would do to animate it. And if they stepped off the rails at all, there was a tech support call, and a TD would come over and fix it for them.
Yeah, but most users don't have a tech support.
No, but what I'm saying is that when you're talking about those creators, I think that there are a lot of people who want to create, and I think that in its early stages, we don't have all those tools yet in the iOS, but I think that we're going to see a lot more and a lot more power. And I think that just because it runs only on the iPad and the iPhone right now doesn't mean that when it runs on a big machine, it's not going to use all 16 processors and not be able to do all those things. And it's going to shield a creative user from the thing that a lot of them hate, which is the OS.
I don't think that Apple is trying to make this dichotomy between people who use, people who create. And if you look at what's already happened in the early days of the iOS, you've got people forcing their way into, I mean, how many text editors are there on the iPad now? How many paint programs? I think there's a 3D program. I mean, there's lots of stuff out there already. So I think creative people are going to force their way in to a platform anyway. And, but some of the trappings, like what Alan's saying, some of the trappings might go away.
Yeah, is it an ideal? I mean, really, don't you still want a 30-inch screen? I mean, really?
But why wouldn't you? The question is, why wouldn't you have a 30-inch screen with iOS? It would just be iOS on a 30-inch screen.
Eventually, yeah.
Eventually.
So you guys just made the case for me that we're going to iOS.
I think it's inevitable.
Well, I mean, it's the modern.
I've been the one who has been saying it, so I'm just glad I didn't have to say that anymore.
Well played.
My whole thing. My whole thing is
it's going to take a while.
It's going to take a while. I think it's going to be 5 years. I don't think it's going to be.
And I just would like to.
And it won't be what it is today, right? And people freak out now, and it's like, oh, in 5 years, Apple will just have iPads, and that's all it is. It's like, no, because you still will need to develop and edit video and all of those things. And maybe they'll call it macOS. Maybe it'll be a Mac extension.
There's just
to the
a risk,
iOS.
and I guess to me, I feel like it's the dumbing down of the platform. And there's a risk when you dumb the platform down that you also push out the people that you need to keep it vital.
Well, and this is where I came up with. This is where my argument came that Apple should license or open source the old iOS.
It's a good argument.
When you're done with the OS 10, when you're going to put it to pasture,
and then that's a real problem too, because then you have a forked development tree.
Well, I'll tell you what it is it's a scorched earth policy. If you push the entire industry towards iOS and then you open source OS 10 so that it runs on everything else, how do you have a room for Linux and Windows and everything else when you could get a free copy of OS 10, which is a very well-developed GUI, platform, or iOS, which is going to be free? The thing about iOS is that I don't think we're going to ever see these upgrades. The upgrades from now on, I think, are going to be. I mean, when we move to a full iOS environment, you're going to end up in a situation where we're no longer paying for OS. That's for you. That was signed.
Oh, thank you.
That was signed. That was. I just spent the. Anyway, I spent the week in.
Alex just gave me the Big Nerd Ranch iPhone programming book.
Such an awesome class.
That there are still people who wish to program.
We were programming for the iOS. That was what we did all last week.
Right.
And I had such a great time.
I just feel like it's idiocracy. It's idiocracy.
On the macOS.
You're breeding out the intelligence.
Well, that's the trick, right? If they do it right, Leo, then that won't happen. And if they do it wrong, that will happen. So the devil's in the details. But I think that there's a lot of promise there, and I think that Apple will be reluctant to part with the Mac until it really feels like it's got everybody has come over. And again, I think Apple will be comfortable with it being that truck product, that pro level product for the tinkerers. And I think that's not a bad product strategy for them to say, look, 5 years down the line, Mac sales are going to be small, but they're going to be at the high end, and they're going to be for pro video people and high end photographers and other and software developers and 3D animators and stuff like that, and have that go for a while. I think they can do it. Now, it's all in execution, but I think that it's not this kind of doomsday scenario where we end up with, simplified iPads that Apple's trying to force on power users. I don't think.
I think when we see iLife coming out with all of these full screen modes and all of these things, I think this is preparation for moving those into iOS. And I think that's all. I mean, I think that we're going to have all those applications, and eventually we're going to have. Possibly some of the pro applications. I think that actually one of the things that'll get left behind, this is a concern for me, is some of the pro applications that would be too hard to port. I think that's that they'll, I don't think that they're going to develop them at the same level. That's just my opinion.
We're going to take a break. We have a great cast here. Alex Lindsay from the Pixel Core, Jason Snell, editor-in-chief of Macworld Magazine. Andy has the week off. I'm Leo Laporte, and we'll be back with more Mac Talk. I love it in just a little bit. Actually, we have some iOS talk. That'll be next. But before we do, I do want to mention our friends at Go to Assist Express, those great folks at Citrix. Take their remote access backbone and make it something that you in IT and support can really use. Go to Assist Express works Mac and PC. You can fix a Mac from a PC, fix a PC from a Mac. It's completely cross-platform. We Mac users appreciate that. It's fast and easy. Your users don't have to have it installed. I've been on a Skype call with people and said, "Oh, you want something fixed? No problem. Here's a link." Pushes them to go to assist.com. 30 seconds later, the software's installed, and I'm in.
I'm testing it this weekend.
I would love you to test it.
My dad is having trouble
Perfect.
with his computer at the house. His iPad. His iPod is full, and he doesn't quite have the whole process.
You can't yet use it on an iPad or an iPod, but you can use it on a Mac.
But I need to use it on his PC. So I'm on a Mac. I need to use it on his PC.
Perfect.
So that I can look at his screen and figure out what and show him and walk him through that process. So I'll have a report next week.
Good. In fact, if you're in the situation where you have somebody you need to support right now, you can try it free for 30 days. Go to assist.com/MacBreak, GOTO, assist.com/MacBreak. 30 days, unlimited use. Now, let me tell you some of the things you get. You can have up to 8 sessions at once. You can have unattended sessions. You do an assay. You can find out what software is running, what operating system, what antivirus or security software, anything running in the background. Integrated live chat, so while Dad's watching you work, you can ask him questions. It's just fantastic. I want you to try it free for 30 days. They do have day passes for people who do this from time to time, but it's very affordable month to month for people who do this day in, day out. If you're a support pro, this is really targeted at you. Go to assist.com/MacBreak. Try it free for 30 days today. I know you're going to love it. You're going to want it. You're going to use it. So Monday, I log into connect.apple.com, and boom, ba-ding, ba-dang-ga-gung, 4.2 is available. Gold Master, final release candidate of iOS 4.2. What is, in your experience, Jason, how soon does that mean we'll have it?
Oh, wow. That's a good question, and I'm not sure we have enough data. I'd say, it's probably in the next week or so. I mean,
soon.
At WWDC, they posted the GM, and then a week or two later, it was out.
Wow.
And that was the same build. So I think unless there's some explosive problem, I think it will be out in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, and it looks great. And iPad users are gonna go ape for it because it is for iOS 4 on the iPad for the first time. So multitasking is there. Folders are there.
Oh my gosh.
iPad with multitasking is so much better an experience than what you have with your iPad today. It's not even close.
I have to say that my iPad feels so dated because I'm using my iPhone all the time with folders and multitasking. And I go back to my iPad and I'm like, oh, it only does one thing at a time. I can't put anything in folders.
It's there aren't that many apps on the iPad yet that are. All the developers are doing that right now, right? They're revving all their iPad apps to support 4.2 so that they'll get all of those multitasking features that are on the iOS, on the iPhone. But I've been trying it with a few universal apps that are therefore already multitasking native on the iPad. And the iPad experience is so much better when you're able to, quickly double tap, switch to an app. It remembers where you were, then you switch back. It's not multitasking like multiple windows on a computer desktop, but it is so much closer than when you have to you have to go back to app startup every time you switch apps, which is lame. So it's a big, big step forward for iPad usability.
They put a notice on their site yesterday. Submit your iOS 4.2 apps. Build, test, and compile your apps to ISO 4.2. The GM seed, and then submit them for review so they can be ready when iOS 4.2 is available to iPad, iPhone, and iPod Touch users.
And that will probably be the gating factor in release, is they want to give their developers time. So maybe that means that it'll be 2 or 3 weeks, just because they want to give their developers time to submit, so that when the iOS does ship and customers are upgrading, they're getting that good kind of app experience with all these background savvy apps.
It took a while, though. Remember, when iPhone went to 4.2, it took quite a while before we saw a lot of multitasking apps. There were a handful to begin with.
Yeah, but there's some history now because they've got the code base. They've been doing it on the iPhone. A lot of these apps already exist in multitasking on the iPhone. They just
suspect it's not going to take long. And Apple didn't seem to mind too much putting out 4.2 on the iPhone without a lot of multitasking apps. In fact, they had some stars that they promoted and said, here are the multitasking ones. Pandora.
Skype.
Yeah.
Skype.
Well, and you want to make sure that you've got
is Skype finally out in multitask form?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of course, when you turn it on, you turn it on, you almost watch your battery go down.
Yeah.
When you run it in the background.
Yeah, I mean, the next step for Apple is going to be notifications, because they're, now they've got these multitasking apps, and they're still pushing out those little bubbles that are just not, it's not good enough for a real multitasking experience. That's iOS 5. I think that's got to be the next frontier, is doing a better way to have one app tell you that it needs you to do something.
Well, and I also need a way to block all of that. That drives me a little nutty. It ruins my Angry Birds experience when someone texts me. It's like I'm in the middle of something.
No,
I got a bird in mid-flight. I got a bird in mid-flight, and next thing I know, it's stuck.
I have to admit, I turn off notifications because we rule, all that stuff will bug the hell out of you. But on the other hand, the Android-style notifications, which is put it up at the top and you can slide it down, so much more modern.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The iOS stuff is like System 7 school modal dialogue box that you're trapped in until you hit OK or cancel or some strange options.
So annoying.
It's just, there's got to be a better way. The Palm, the WebOS and Android both do a better job there, and I imagine that'll be on the agenda for iOS 5. I'm actually shocked that it's not in 4, but they had to pick their battles and they dumped it.
You have any ideas? I mean, before cut and paste was available, a lot of people speculated on how Apple would implement it. In fact, I think Apple did implement it pretty close to how most people thought they would. Any ideas how they might implement notifications, a better, more modern notification system? Do you copy Android? Do you copy Palm?
I doubt they'll copy anybody. They'll think about it for a long time.
Right.
It'll take us a long time to get it. We'll wish that they had done it 6 months earlier, but it'll be great.
It'll be just what they said about copy and paste, right? Which I think they actually did it better than people expected. Even the good implementations, they did it a little bit better.
Yeah.
But yeah, still the idea of pulling down or somehow being able to sort of get to your list of notifications without it getting in your way. They're going to do something that isn't exactly like Android, but I think will Steve Jobs will come out on stage and he'll say, well, Android does this and WebOS does this, and we think we've got a better way to do it. I mean, that's Apple for you. But I do think they have to do it because it's kind of a mess. You got an IM over here, and you've got, a Skype session over here, and you get these buttons that you have to hit a button. You can't sort of delay it. And it's the more multitasking you do, the harder that is.
A little change to the ping thing on iTunes.
Is Ping still up?
Your senior contributor at Macworld, Kirk McElern, caught it. He says iTunes now features a sort of hybrid iTunes sidebar where Ping used to stand alone. It's a little Ping, a little Genius. A
little Genius. Yeah, they stuck some Genius in there, which is good because, Genius, some of the Genius data is actually kind of interesting based on what you're actually doing in iTunes versus Ping, which is the social networking, which, it hasn't really taken off.
I have to admit, I was very excited about it, and I don't use it anymore.
Yeah, I only see
the sidebar
Genius
off
now. Yeah,
here's the worst part is that I got really excited about, and I started getting into the habit of doing like a post every day, and then it broke. Like I suddenly couldn't use Ping for like a week. I kept on trying to do it.
You were the Ping guy.
I was like totally into it, and it broke for like a week, and so I kept on trying to like go to a song and then do a post about it, and I had this whole little program because I used to be in the music industry, so I tell funny little stories about different bands and songs and stuff like that, and I was really fascinated by the idea of being able to go to a song and immediately post about it, and then it didn't work for a week, and then I got out of the habit, and then I didn't really get back into the habit.
How interesting! Now when I go to my Ping, or I go to iTunes and I go to the Ping sidebar, it says iTunes Ping and everything, but I don't even really get much Ping in there anymore. Is Ping a flop?
Yeah, I think it's a flop. I think that. I suspect that Apple expected that it would be more tied into, let's say, Facebook than it actually is.
Facebook let them down, huh?
How many social networks do you need? Now, the idea of taking stuff from iTunes and sticking it in my Facebook feed or my Twitter feed, that's kind of interesting if it's done right. And, there are some issues with Ping really being focused on the iTunes store and not necessarily on the music in your library. It was really, who knows why it's like this, but it really is this sort of transparent ploy to get you to advertise things for your friends to buy on iTunes.
And I think that what could make a difference, though, is that if you actually let people get a kind of an Amazon associate kind of income from making those recommendations, you would turn a whole different process on.
I suppose also tying it into your existing social networks would sure help. And like I use Last.fm, and I've got the Audio Scrobbler app from Last.fm open on my system, and that means that Last.fm knows what I play every day and keeps charts and will make suggestions and all these things. Apple's got iTunes sitting right there. If Apple built that sort of thing in, let you opt in for all the privacy reasons, and then was able to generate like Jason's charts and share it with a friend and post it on Facebook, how great would that be? But instead, it's this kind of manual process. You have to be in the iTunes database. If it's a song iTunes doesn't know about, it can't help you. And it lives only on iTunes, and it really ends up just being, it's just not enough. There's not enough there to motivate people to use it as a social networking app. So they need to hook it in, and they need to do more with it or just kill it. But as it stands, it is a flop.
Also, big problems with spam, ping spam.
Yeah.
Sophos has pointed out that there were spam messages on many popular artists on the ping service. Apple apparently, as of last night, deleted a lot of them. Or actually, no, this is older than that. But there was a big problem for a long time.
Yeah, they're better at it. I mean, it's one of those things that Apple's not. It's not in the core competency of Apple to be moderators, and it's like when they did their iReview thing where they were reviewing websites. It's not what they are good at. And the scary thing is when we talked about MobileMe earlier is that Ping is this sort of cloud service a little bit, and I'm not convinced that they really get it, and that's a little scary because this is the future is stuff like this, and you want to do it right. And with Ping, maybe there's extenuating circumstances. Maybe they really thought that Facebook was a part of it, and that fell apart at the end. But
I think that's probably what happened.
It's not it. Yeah. Yeah, because it would be much more useful if it was tied into Facebook. Although still, it's gotta watch what you're doing when you're playing music. It can't just if everything is manual. Yeah, it has to scrabble. I mean, Audio Scrabbler is great. It's just, I mean, I love this stuff, but the idea that you can say, hey, you know what songs have I been listening to the last 6 months? What are my favorite songs from the last 6 months? Because somebody's asking me what I'm listening to and I don't know, and I want to recommend something to them. My Last FM page has those charts. You can actually see what I listen to, and I can share those with friends or I can keep them private. But I know, and it's pretty cool. That would be something great for Ping, but it's not there.
I think the other thing is that I find that I just don't use iTunes as a place that I hang out. I go there to watch some stuff. I go there to play stuff.
Part
and
of the
mostly,
problem too.
I use it to sync my iPhone.
You're such a Ping fanatic.
I know.
I'm going to tell the world why Ping.
I was wrong. I just want to say.
Oh, man, that hurts.
It's wrong.
That's got to hurt.
It's all I got to say.
Slow clap.
I was excited. I was excited about it. Well, what was nice about it was it was a lot less work for me to just link to a song and talk about it. And I like the idea of talking.
You bought into the promise of Ping,
but
it just didn't deliver.
It just didn't deliver. And so the thing is, I could see where it could go, and I got excited about wanting to be part of that.
Get there,
and I just don't see it going there right now. And Apple sometimes puts this stuff out, doesn't work immediately, and then they sort things out, but usually not. Usually it goes bigger. It doesn't. Yeah, it does have potential.
iTunes has so many customers. Apple has so many customers. The data is really kind of rich. It could go somewhere, but I think that Apple's going to have to break out of its silo and stick this out on other services for it to really work.
I also think that and I've said this before, but I really think that Apple is missing. I know that they don't think that people want to have a subscription service, but subscription services are really cool.
They got it.
And the thing is that if you added a subscription service, then Ping becomes a whole different thing because now I can put up songs and no one has to buy them. They're all listening to them. I can put up playlists and people can just go listen to them. And if Apple added that, then Ping works.
Feature, right? Yeah. And how great would that be if you could actually listen to the playlist? But no, you have to buy it.
Yeah.
Right. That's the whole thing is that people, they can take my word for it. I can tell a little story, but if everyone could listen to the song that I'm recommending from the late 80s, early 90s or whatever, and actually just put it in their playlist, or if I could do a best of the 90s, best of the early 90s that you never heard, that's the kind of stuff I can do because I used to be a music director. And then people could download that without risking anything. They could just download and listen to it. This mixed with the Zune type marketplace, would be incredible. It would be the end of everything else, and maybe that's why,
that may be what that data center is for, though. I mean, that's another possibility is really iTunes cloud stuff. Now, whether it's a subscription or it's just sort of we know you own this, and so we'll let you play it back via streaming, I don't know. But, subscription's not going to necessarily be a mainstream product. But as an add-on, we've got people here who totally swear by it. Like Chris Breen is a subscription fanatic, and it's great because he's got pretty eclectic music taste, and he can sample. And for some people, they're going to be happy with what they've got, and that's fine, too. A lot of these subscription services have been, you pay to subscribe and then maybe you can buy some stuff, and either or I don't think necessarily works. But if Apple can lay a premium subscription service on top of a la carte iTunes, that could be huge.
Yeah, I mean, and now that I think that the separation can be very clear, I'm paying with the subscription service. I mean, the problem with the Zune, I have a Zune and I use it especially when I travel. I have a Zune that has just packed with music, and a lot of times it's music that I haven't heard yet. My brother talks about it, and I put it on my thing because it's free. But now I can buy stuff that has no DRM, that is pretty high quality, 256-bit or whatever. And so I can buy that, or I can just choose to be at the wash of, at the whim of my 30-day thing, and knowing that those are the two options that I have. And I just think it would be, and especially if Apple did it, because they already have such a huge installed base, I do think that the biggest concern that they would have is they would have a serious antitrust, issue not too far down the future, because there'd be nothing left. I mean, I think that if they did that,
maybe that's why they just.
And that might be why
they're trying not to dominate too completely.
I mean, there'd be nothing left. I mean, if they did that, it would be because they already have the installed base.
Let's speculate. What else? There's speculation number one. The North Carolina data facility.
Speculation
could be could be for streaming music. What else, Jason, might Apple do? I mean, do we know much about the capacity? We just know that they built their own dedicated data center.
I know there's a big building there, and it's got stuff in it.
It's
and beyond
ginormous.
that, it is all speculation. But
I'm guessing it's a lot of excerpts.
And it was finished a while ago. I mean, it's not like it's not ready to go online. I mean, they've got stage 2 in progress.
Well, they've got a lot. I mean, they are moving a lot of data now. But I mean, it is fun to speculate. And I think that media in general, if you look at the Apple TV and it's all streaming, the idea that you no longer, right now, when you buy something from Apple, a media file, whether it's a movie or a TV show, you can only download it once. You're actually not. I think there's a licensing agreement with the studios. You can't download it more than once, which is why, for example, you can't buy something on the new Apple TV. It would seem to make a lot of sense that you could say, okay, I want to buy this, now stream it to me on my Apple TV, and later when I check in on my Mac or PC, I can get it there. But sorry, one download per customer. That's how it works. So if they can shift that around a little bit and make it more that once you buy it, you get to stream it, it's in your locker. Then they would need a huge amount of storage and bandwidth and all of that. But that's one path for them that really goes to that streaming model while keeping kind of the a la carte alive too. So I think that's a huge possibility. And then the whole Google thing of saying we're going to roll out a mobile me for everybody who buys a piece of our hardware for the life of the hardware or for a couple of years or at a certain base level, and then you can pay more to upgrade. That's going to be a lot of systems that that's a lot more people using mobile me than use it today. So that would require a lot as well. And those are my two best guesses about what is happening behind the walls of that mysterious facility.
Yeah, both of those seem fairly likely and reasonable. Anything maybe off the wall?
No, I know. I'm usually Leo's looking for me. He's looking. Notice when he says off the wall,
off the wall,
looks straight at me.
What about it, Mr. Off the Wall?
No, I think that it's either a kind of a Google Docs kind of thing or a media service thing or both. But I think that those are probably the most likely solutions that they're working on. And I think that
alien
we saw
technology.
I mean, I think that's
alien technology.
Well,
They don't want you to know.
I like that.
I couldn't talk about that.
Art Bell was on Coast to Coast on Halloween night, and I think it just got you in the mood for something wacky.
But I think that we've seen. I work. They started experimenting with the idea that you could review stuff that was done and circle it and everything else, which I thought was, completely missed the boat. But I think that was the first step.
It seems to be now, and you see it with Google, you see it with Microsoft, you're seeing it with Apple for the first time. Maybe not the first time, but this thing endemic in the tech industry where you start an initiative and then it just kind of dribbles off.
But I think that there was a lot.
Boy, iWork is a great example. I love the idea that you could put your stuff on the cloud, you could share presentations, and it's fine, and it's there, it's sitting there. They don't promote it, they haven't done anything to it.
But I don't. I mean, the thing is that I think the problem is you can't edit it up there. And that's that was the. I think
that would be a nice thing to add.
Right,
but they haven't done a thing.
Right. It's just been sitting there, and it's not just the editing; it's the round tripping, and you even see that now on the iPad where you can open the things from iWork.com, but then when you save them back, you have to save them to a new file, and they don't sync, and it's just again, Google Docs isn't perfect, but Google Docs is better at that sort of thing. So hopefully there's a phase 2
and
from
it's under development. I mean, not that Google doesn't let things slide. I mean, there's 100 projects that Google bought or adopted or created, and nothing happened with them. So I mean, it's the same thing in Microsoft. It just seems like tech companies these days, I guess they throw a lot of stuff against the wall, And then
Some
they
of it
have to
doesn't
pick what
stick.
sticks.
The collaboration stuff, I think, is pretty complicated. I mean, I just noticed that there are times when I'm working. A lot of times we're working before shows on Google Docs, and things are getting. I start typing something, and then it conflicts with something that someone else is typing with. So dealing with those pass-offs is pretty complicated, actually. The issue, though, is I think that the holy grail as a Mac user is being able to work in Pages, do everything, and then upload it and let someone else edit it, quickly and easily, and then be able to bring it back into Pages and theoretically work offline. In applications that I want to use, whether it's Pages or, like, for instance, if I'm creating a spreadsheet, I unfortunately do it. Not unfortunately, but I do a lot of spreadsheets. They become fairly complex, and I do them in numbers because I hate Excel. And the only thing I hate more than Excel for spreadsheets is Google Spreadsheets, which is the most
worst.
asinine. I mean, so here's what I do: is I build the whole thing. I build the core of my spreadsheet in numbers, which is the best thing to build on a spreadsheet on. It's just the fastest. And then I save it as an Excel file, and then I email it to myself to get it into Google Docs so everyone else can work with it from there on. And the thing, because that's the most efficient, in my opinion, way to do it, because the Google Docs version of spreadsheets is I just want to shoot myself.
Yeah.
So anyways,
it's hard. This stuff is hard. I guess what you're saying. And
and I think that, I would love to be able to have numbers, be able to build things in numbers, and then make them available online through my .Mac account, but let people continue.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I was saying. There's a huge promise in this,
right?
And it just they push the button, they turn it on, but they never release it.
Well, I think it takes a lot of work. I mean, trying to get that to integrate back and forth with applications rather than web pages.
And that's one thing we know about Apple is that they like laser-like focus on one thing at a time, and it almost is like the the eye of Sauron.
Steve Eye.
The baleful eye of Sauron. It can only look at one thing at a time.
It's a big, to the Steve Eye, it's a big blue eye with, I always imagine it as this huge blue eye with a turtleneck, black turtleneck.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty much how I envision that too. But the fact that iWork.com is just sort of laid there might actually speak. Either they've just totally abandoned it, or somebody at some point, maybe Steve, who knows, said this is not working. We need a better strategy for this whole thing. And they're working on it now. And, it's Apple, so they're not going to do the little, we're making incremental progress. We added a button over here. Instead, they just work on it in secret. They don't do anything. They don't say anything about it. They act as if the thing doesn't exist, and then they flip a switch. And that may be what's going on. We just don't know.
Well, I understand that that's Apple's way. It's kind of old-fashioned in the Web 2.0 universe, where you launch and iterate in public.
Well, they've been trying it with the Mobile Bee beta, right? The Mobile Bee beta, the Calendar beta, the Mail beta. Those they did a soft launch, and they did some iteration in beta. So they're trying
the ping beta.
Sorry. Yeah, they can't all be gems, folks. So they're trying it, and we'll see how they do. It is new for them. It is not, services, online services. It's not what Apple is traditionally good at, and they're learning. And I think Apple, Apple's a company with a lot of pride, and I think it's hard for them to put out a product that they're not proud of. And yet, at some point, they sort of have to give it a go and learn. And some of that learning is going to come with pain, and we've seen that with Ping, and we've seen that with iWork.com and with MobileMe. And the question is, are they learning enough to make it work, or are they maybe, who knows, buying companies that are full of people who know how to make it work and then having them build it for them? A lot of the companies Apple buys, they don't buy it for the tech necessarily. They buy it sometimes for the people, because they think these people are really smart, and like they built, like Lala.com is gone now.
Right.
It's unclear whether Apple's going to replicate Lala or not, but clearly Apple wanted those people who were really good at internet streaming stuff for something.
Well, and that is, by the way, another Silicon Valley thing to do, which is buy the company for the people. In fact, it just happened.
And the hard thing is keeping the people. Because the hard part for I think both Google and Apple sometimes.
Maybe not for Apple.
Facebook is an example, and I think it's because they have an imminent IPO. There's an imminent cash event for these people, and they're all rubbing their hands. But I look at what they did with FriendFeed. They bought it, and they really just wanted Brett Taylor and Paul Buchheit, and they wanted the talent, and they've used the talent. Facebook and I'm really depressed, killed Dropio. I don't know if you know that service, drop.io. Sam Lessin is a brilliant guy, and it was a really nice service that allowed you just to kind of throw stuff up on the cloud.
Sometimes it's people and patents, right? I mean, I
don't even think it's the patents here. I think it's just people. Mark Zuckerberg has said we've never acquired a company for the company's assets. It's always been for the people. Mm-hmm. So I could see Apple doing that with Lala. That makes perfect sense. And if
Apple's pitch to the employees of Lala is iTunes is huge, you're going to be a part of iTunes. Right. You're going to take
the next
that's
generation.
Pretty compelling.
Yeah. You're the next iTunes, folks. That's and it's Apple. Although you have to think it certainly helps that Apple's stock is like compared to Microsoft or Google. You know?
If you're some company that's going to go in and buy another company just to raid the people and put them to work, Apple's in a pretty good position there.
Bet.
Google probably is too, where you're really saying, look, you want to be. You get called up to the big leagues,
yeah,
kid.
that's the bigs. Yeah. That's the bigs, isn't it? Yeah. Google's having trouble because it is the bigs. And, you know, people like Colleen, my chief of engineering here, who was just, you know, she said, when I hired her, she said, I'm here until Google hires me. Right. You know, and that's fine. It's like, we're AAA. Go ahead. But I think now Facebook and Apple really have the stock that's going through the roof. And that's really something.
Well, I think that's one of the things that
compensation.
There are people that I've talked to that have worked at all of those companies, and some of them have left. And a lot of it is just a cultural thing. It's not so much the money, it's that they get there and it's a corporation.
Well,
you know,
that's
it's like
right.
They were used to live.
Look what happened to Naveen and the dodgeball guys. They went to Google for dodgeball. Google went, yeah, nice to have you. We don't know what the hell to do with you. And you know, they left and started Foursquare. Right. You know, I think that happens all the time.
Right.
Unfortunately. Let's take a break. Come back with more. Jason Snell is here from Macworld Magazine, macworld.com, the website. Is the magazine ever? I hate to challenge you here, Jason. But I see PC Magazine stop printing. I see a lot of magazines no longer printing. Is Macworld committed to a print edition?
Yeah, and it's very profitable.
Good.
Actually. You know, the idea. One thing that we did that a lot of publishers didn't do, that full credit to the IDG people who made this decision, is, you know, you don't keep a print magazine around for pride and have it like break even or lose money. Make sure that it stays alive and is profitable and continues to contribute to the bottom line. And the fact is, we got great readers. They love to subscribe, and it continues to make us money. So we're not going to say, let's dump it, because it actually is a good business. And the website is another good business, and it's not an either or. So, yeah, I think we're in it for quite a while.
I'm really pleased to hear that. And
now, and I'm embarrassed to say, I don't think. Do you have the full magazine available on the iPad now?
On the iPad, yeah, there's through Zinio right now. You can get the digital replica, and then we're working on an iPad app that is not going to be a magazine replica. It's going to be stuff that's fed from the stuff we do day in, day out on the website, because we end up, you know, on the website, if you read our website every day, and I know some people out there do.
I do.
That's like 20, 25 articles a day. That would take, we could fill a weekly magazine with that content and have stuff left over. It's the print magazine is really this like cut down, curated, best of the month kind of thing now, with print pictures and stuff. So on the iPad, we got two options. You can do the magazine digital replica magazine thing, and then we're going to do an app that's basically going to be a reader app that's sort of curated stuff from off of.
I'd love to have something like Flipbook for Macworld. I mean,
well, you kind of can. You just add macworld.com.
That's what I do. I mean, that's. I mean, I do that now to some degree. Well, my problem with Flipbook is always that I have to go back to the web. You know, go to the web view. I just want it to be like that experience.
Some of this you can blame Apple for, because like New Yorker or a lot of magazines are just either selling a new app every month or every week, or they're doing, because if you do, it's my understanding, if you do in-app purchase, what you'd like to do is have a Macworld app, and they could in-app purchase the magazine, or maybe even better yet, if you're already subscribed to the paper magazine, you get a discount or free version on the iPad. And Apple says to people who are doing in-app purchases, we're not going to, you can't have any of the information. We keep it all to ourselves.
Right. The in-app purchase rules are very specific. Subscriptions are hard to implement. They're Apple customers, not publishers' customers.
They've got to fix that. That's
the trick. So different publishers are trying it in different ways. And I think the other big missing piece here is that when the iPad came out, a lot of us thought that Apple would have a story for newspaper and magazine publishers like what Amazon has with the Kindle, and it's just not there. So a lot of us are developing apps, and developing apps is really expensive. And so what's going to happen is Apple going to come out with an iNewsstand for iPad in the next 6 months that makes all of this app investment irrelevant, because you'll all just do it through Apple. There are rumors about that, but is Apple going to take 30% and say that the customers aren't yours, they're theirs? Publishers hate that, because that's one way publishers make money, is knowing who their customers are and being able to market stuff to them.
I was really surprised. I mean, Steve Jobs went to a Wall Street Journal with his funny hat, and it looked, before the iPad came out, and it looked like that they were really doing an outreach to publishers, and that, in fact, I think a lot of publishers thought that this would be the iPad would be the savior for print magazines, and it's really proven to be not such a great platform, both for the publishers and for the end users. I hate to have to buy Time Magazine every week. I hate the New Yorker. I have to buy an issue.
Oh, I'd subscribe today if I could subscribe to those, but I'm not going to buy. I'm not going to use it as a newsstand where you're paying 4 times as much as you would for a subscription. I want to subscribe.
So it's bad for everybody.
Well, and I think, I think that also you and I, or all of us, I think, have podcasts. We don't know anything about our viewers. I mean, those things are. I mean, we know them from what our other social things are.
Well, we actually do. I take it back. I think you're wrong. I do know exactly because and that's one of the reasons. And iTunes lets us do this. We redirect the URL through our advertising agency, PodTrack. We know a lot about our users.
That's
right. My podcast goes through FeedBurner or Fido.
FeedBurner's even gotten better with this.
Well, but if you'll know what your sales are though. I mean, how do you'll know what your sales are for if you're doing an in-app purchase.
We know locations. We know how they download it. We know an awful lot about our audience.
Definitely more. Yeah.
Much more than any magazine.
No, you're right.
Is going to know because Apple won't tell them a thing.
Right. Because I mean, we're looking at doing a bunch of in-app type things, and from my perspective, all I'm looking at is how many people bought it. That's the thing that I'm interested in, because then I'm going to be working on we'll have other online ways for them to be interacting with us, and within the application of them being able to sign up to things and be connected to us for the people who choose to do that. So there'll be people who buy stuff from us, ongoing content, but there'll also be social areas where they're where they're interconnecting with us directly, depending on the people who are really committed to that.
Well, and I bring it up because, Jason, I know you must spend many of your cycles on this issue. And,
oh, yeah. It's and nobody knows. I mean, that's the big thing. There's this great mystery about what's the right way to do it. And if you talk to Condé Nast or Time Warner, they'll say, well, what we're doing is we're going to lay out the magazine and we're going to make these big image files and we're going to cram them together. And it's kind of cool. But I'm not convinced that taking a print page and replicating it on an iPad or some other tablet is ultimately the way to go. That's like saying, hey, we have TV now. Let's take stage plays and put cameras in the audience. And
that's what we did.
And broadcast. Right, exactly. So it's like using an old medium's metaphor to start out in a new medium. And that's one of the reasons why at Macworld we're not building our app for the iPad is not going to be a magazine replica, because we think that's not where it's going. Now, we might have taken the wrong tack too. We'll see what nobody really knows what's going to happen, but I'm not convinced it's anything more than transitional to have these kind of big paper magazine equivalents. That said, I'd love to be able to cancel some of my magazine subscriptions and get them on my iPad, because then I wouldn't have to carry them around and recycle them.
And I can imagine that IDG's not thrilled to have to spend a lot of money on app development that could be completely wasted.
Yeah, right now it's more R&D, like let's try this and
let's figure it out.
Be out on the forefront. Yeah. And the good thing about IDG is when we build this app, we're going to be able to turn it around, and if IDG in Poland and Germany and Sweden, if they want to use a version of it for their stuff, they'll be able to do that.
That's good.
IDG is going to get some money out of their investment, or some app out of their investment. Good. But lots of publishers can't do that or aren't willing to do that. And then you look at something like Time Warner, where they've got deep pockets, but they were laying out Sports Illustrated 3 different times. I mean, how many designers do you need? Magazine development isn't like web development. Magazine development, you've got designers and copy editors who are laying out every single page in great detail, and editors who are cutting it to fit line by line, right? On the web, you slap it in, press save, and it goes up, and it's as long as it is. In the magazine, you got to get it to fit exactly and make sure the breaks work right and get the photography and, worry about the font. And so to take that to another medium and then maybe lay it out a different way for the iPad, that's so expensive. And even Time Warner finally said, you know what, we're not going to do Sports Illustrated in a custom portrait version for the iPad because it's too much work. So I don't believe that that's where this stuff's going.
And I think that the unfortunate thing for a lot of these magazines is that if they don't dive into that soon, they're not going to be able to, right now the opportunity for magazines, I'm sure is that they need to convert.
I disagree. I think you can wait. I think you can wait.
Because I just know that I read a lot less magazines. I mean, there's basically 3 magazines that I'm going to pick up at the store.
Well,
I'm
but
going
I
to pick up
think, look at the
Macworld,
Macworld model.
And Wired.
Yeah, look at the Macworld model. They've got advertisers, so they're able to be profitable, they're able to survive. I think you could tread water a little bit. I don't think this is happening overnight. I think if it's me, and it's kind of the attitude we're taking at Twit, is we're watching, we're making apps, but we're watching, because I think we're in a very unstable and moving platform.
Well, I don't think you need to commit, but I do think you need to do something. I think that what Macworld, for instance, is doing of experimenting and figuring out what IDs.
Yeah, no, that's not a. If you can afford it, that's not a bad thing to do.
But I think you need to take that audience though, because I think that most magazines, their audiences are dwindling.
Do you? Oh, so you're saying you're going to lose the audience if you don't do something?
The problem is you want to move that audience from.
Let's look at the New Yorker, which is a non-technical publication. For a long time, they kind of eschewed electronic publication. They eventually did the Kindle, but they weren't on the Kindle even when it launched. Now they have an iPad app. But Conde's moved very slowly with the New Yorker. It's a print magazine, and it's for readers. And I think it's perfectly okay for them to do that. I think if I were the New Yorker, I might not have launched that application even. I might have waited.
At this point, yeah. I mean, one of the advantages of being at a tech magazine is that
you've got early adopters.
Our readers are ahead of the curve, right? Yeah. So that's going to be an issue, and that's good and that's bad. But you look at something like what Conde is doing with print, and you can do that. They can get away with that. I think that our fear is. A lot of our readers are going to say, we're already saying, I don't need print anymore. And so our issue is how do we continue our relationship with them? Yep. And I mean, that's why we just launched this thing called Macworld Insider, which is a whole bunch of website features that's essentially a digital subscription to macworld.com. And one of the reasons we did that is because we want to give our loyal readers an option to stay with us, even if they decide that print is over for them. And we'll see. We'll continue to grow that product. But I mean, that was a big motivator, to be honest. Is just to say we've got these hundreds of thousands of people who love Macworld and give us money every year. Can we give them something else so that if they say see ya in print, that they're not saying goodbye, we're never going to see you ever again. And that's the trick. That's the challenge.
Yeah, I can see that. I can't see that. Let's take a break. Jason Snell is here. I started to take a break, and then we got in this conversation, which is great. I'm glad. He's the editor-in-chief of Macworld Magazine from pixelcore.com. Mr. Alex Lindsay, a nice smile, is here. Andy Nacco has the day off. I'm Leo Laporte, and I want to talk to you about Gazelle. If you have gadgets, we all have gadgets that are lying around, taking up space. They're just sitting there, and you'd like to maybe make a little bit of money. If you'd like to make a little bit of money, I want to tell you about Gazelle.com. Don't sell it. Gazelle it. If you go to GAZELLE.com, and just let's say, what do you have lying around? Give me an example, Alex. Something you haven't sold yet that you're not using. Maybe a GPS, an iPod.
I've got some cameras.
Cameras are a great example. Let's say you have a Canon.
Panasonic LX3.
Oh, an LX3. You're not using that anymore?
No, not really.
That's a great old camera.
It is. I'm moving on, though.
Let's type in Panasonic.
I don't know what I'm moving on to. I have so many laying around now.
TZ3. Let's see if
I have a better one.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
My Fuji W1, because I'm about to get a W3.
Fuji W1. So you type it in. See if there it is. The real 3D Fuji W1. Okay, is it able to take pictures, Alex?
Yes.
Is perfect condition, because you probably used it twice.
No, I've used it a lot. It's
really?
Good condition.
This is the 3D camera.
I love my little 3D
You have
camera.
all the gear. By the way, look at this at the bottom. They have a price graph as the price history. So they're expecting a big drop. Well, not yet, but they're expecting a drop, right?
Because here's what's happening.
Because the new one comes out.
The new one's shipping.
So this is a great example of you want the new one. You can get $200. Now that's pretty good. $283 for that one towards the new one.
Now what happens if you click on fair?
How much does it go down by? Let's see. Calculate. From 283 to 246. Now, of course, what happens is they're going to send you a box and postage. They pay the postage. You load that box up with crap, all the stuff you don't want. And they will then assess it. They'll remove data from anything that's got data on it. They do that. They also assess it. If it matches your, if it really is what you said it was, they're going to send you a check for that amount. But, of course, sometimes people overestimate the value of what they're sending. It's really poor condition. They say perfect or whatever. So they're going to say, here's the offer. You can reject it at any time, but if you accept it, they send you a check and your items are sold. Now, not just stuff that's saleable. Gazelle also recycles, green recycling. It will never end up in the landfill. They will make sure that with local U.S.-based recyclers that are EPA certified, that it gets handled properly. So this is great for recycling.
I have a whole bunch of computers at the office. Maybe I'll just send them to Gazelle.
Exactly. They'll send you the box. They'll pay the post. You can also fund a cause. You can set up a page for your team. You set up a page for your school and have a gadget drive. GAZELLE.com. Don't sell it. Gazelle it. Products in 20 categories, 200,000 unique items. Pretty much anything in your box could be gazelled. Folks, I want you to dispose of your gadgets properly, and I don't want them to clutter up your house.
Well, that's been our problem is we have all these older Macs and PCs and stuff that are sitting in the office, and we don't really know what to do with them.
Yeah, nobody does. This is life in the gadget world.
Yeah. I didn't think of sending the whole computers back to them.
Yeah.
I was thinking of lots of little gadgets. I'm there.
Gazelle.com, the offer code, I just want to make sure because sometimes they change it. Yeah, the offer code is MacBreak. So here's, by the way, I didn't mention this, but you do the whole thing at Gazelle. At the end when you're checking out, just put in the coupon code MacBreak. You get 5% more, just like a little bonus as a thank you.
Nice.
That
makes it a lot easier. The W3 I've been kind of waiting on and looking at and hemming and hawing. $500, but I was like, if I even got $200 back, it really cuts the edge off.
I'll be honest, you could go onto eBay and sell it yourself. You might get
trouble.
$20 or $30 more, maybe.
It's too much trouble.
But the risk and the trouble and everything, and this is good for like 100 different things. So I think, yeah, exactly. What's your time worth?
Yeah.
Gazelle.com, offer code MacBreak. Try it today. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Let me go back to the rundown that our esteemed producer Eileen has prepared for us. Apple suing Motorola right back over 6 patents. I don't even, you know what? I stopped reporting lawsuits.
So
it's just
boring.
ridiculous. It is. It's just, it's a shame.
It's all lawyers getting leverage over other lawyers, and it is the most boring thing in patents and lawsuits and gavels.
And we've got 2 lawyers in studio who are nodding briskly. Of course, they're from Canada. It's a whole different, litigation is completely different in Canada. Yeah, sort of.
In Canada, don't they just run a race and the fastest person wins?
That's right.
That's Canadian law, right?
That's right. It's like Alice in Wonderland. I think, though, that if you lose a lawsuit, don't you have to pay? Like, isn't there kind of a slap kind of a thing in Canada? Yeah, and I think that kind of is a good disincentive against. It's incentive not to file frivolous lawsuits. You should have some merit in your lawsuit, or it's going to cost you. Yeah, I think that's good policy. We have that in California. We have SLAP. Folks in Europe woke up an hour early on Sunday. Did that happen in Canada too? I don't know. We haven't changed our daylight savings time yet, but there's a bug in the iPhone.
Oh.
It's actually, I think, an even bigger bug than that. Some people in the U.S. were saying that their clock app went off early, which is weird because it's the wrong direction and there was no daylight savings. So something is really weird in the daylight savings code of the iOS and how it interacts with the clock app, which I think is part of the issue here. Is like the clock app gets confused and doesn't pick up the new time, and so basically for the next week or so, don't rely on your iPhone alarm clock.
So you know what? In Europe, they changed to summertime. They changed away from summertime this past weekend. The iPhone's regular clock. This is according to a story in Macworld. The iPhone's actually is
reliable.
Yeah, I think pretty reliable. I think this is probably your European brothers here. I don't know.
Yes.
Let me check. Yeah, UK, Macworld UK. The iPhone's regular clock can handle the change and automatically steps back an hour, but the alarm clock doesn't.
Yeah, because the clock app is running in the background, and it apparently isn't checking to see if the time zone has changed since it was set. Yeah,
I'll tell you what's really weird is
so that means you would. By the way, if you relied on the alarm in Europe, you would wake up an hour late, but you have an excuse. So what's wrong with that?
Excuses are good.
I'm sorry, my iPhone broke.
I think this is just a good time to repeat the call for the elimination of daylight savings time. What a stupid.
But wait a minute now. Stupid. You don't want daylight savings, so we would be...
I don't care what we have. Just leave it the same.
I don't like waking up in the dark, so can you handle that for me?
My whole thing is just pick one. Just pick it.
I just don't want to wake up in the dark.
I wake up in the dark every morning.
That's because you're a farm lad and you have to milk the cows, right?
Well, there's that.
You grew up, I think, that way, didn't you?
I didn't milk any cows.
No?
I don't know how to milk cows.
Did you...
I know how to
drove the combine.
I did drive a combine once.
Yeah, once.
Yeah. Well, mostly I didn't do a lot of the combine.
Did you do chores at all, Alex?
No, I'd loaded. So August.
This explains a lot.
Wait a minute. No, I worked on the farms all summer, and I spent a lot of time in horse stalls,
mucking the barn.
Yes.
Every night. We had 11 horses. We had 11 farm horses.
There you go.
No, so
we have 4 horses and like a dozen cows. See, Alex and I have something in common.
Yeah, they're farm boys here.
Yeah.
Did you wake up in the morning, early morning, it's dark, and you had to break the ice on the wash bowl and what? No.
No. So when the water froze in the barn, I would have to take a sled and get 1 gallon jugs on there, 6 of them, and fill them up with water and take them up to give the water to the horses, and then do that back and forth in the middle of the night.
You win.
2 ways uphill.
Uphill.
No,
both
it wasn't.
ways.
It wasn't uphill. It was just along. It was just over gravel.
At the end of September, the same thing happened in New Zealand and Australia. Alarms went off 1 hour early because they were switching to summertime. Apple representatives contacted on Monday did not say when the issue will be fixed. We will be finding out this Sunday. Just a word of warning. And if I'm an hour late for the show,
I just want to know that if any of our elected officials or people running for election,
I know,
said
get rid
that they
of
were
it.
gonna,
I know.
if they said they were going to get rid of it, I would have voted for it.
I think President Obama at one point mentioned he didn't like it either.
That's why I voted for him.
Did he do it?
Arizona. My parents live in Arizona. They don't have daylight savings
They don't have
time.
it.
And,
I know.
They seem fine.
Sanity. And there's a lot of African
rumor
countries
has
that
it the
don't have
reason they did that is because there was a guy who ran a drive-in movie theaters in Arizona, and he wanted it to be dark later so he could get in an extra showing. And to this day, Arizona doesn't have it.
Which I think is awesome. The only thing about it is that you can't figure out what time it is in Arizona when you're in California because you're like, I can't do that in my head.
I know.
What time of the year is it?
Are they always?
They just remain stable, and we move.
Yeah, but what are they? Stable compared to us?
I don't know which one.
No, they're so half the year they are in Pacific time, and the other half of the year they are in Mountain time.
There's your problem right there.
But if we all just regained our sanity, we would not have to deal with this at all.
So when President Obama was elected, he said he wanted to get rid of daylight savings time to conserve energy. However, a study says there is little scientific proof this reduces energy consumption. It also turns out this practice could be wasteful.
How about we just reduce confusion?
I know. Let's conserve sanity. You know, we had a whole march on that.
There's so little of it.
I know.
We need to conserve it.
Let's conserve sanity.
In fact, in Indiana, which did not observe daylight savings time until very recently,
what were they
an
thinking?
overall increase of 1% in residential electricity use when they went to daylight savings time, and occasional increases of 2 to 4% in late spring and early fall. So, in fact, it's wasting energy.
And
you can't use Indiana as an example. They have
great.
Different counties have different time zones in Indiana.
I think it's fine.
Madness.
I think that it's fine that we're saving energy. I just want to have the clock stay the same. That's all. I just don't. I'm tired. I mean, we just.
Well,
need to,
I think Apple feels about the same way about now too.
Obviously, the guy who writes the clock app is not let out, and he isn't allowed to travel.
Yeah,
he just stays inside.
Apple had a very good quarter in smartphone sales, finally besting BlackBerry from RIM with 26% of the smartphone sales in the U.S. in the quarter. RIM down to 24%. Microsoft down from 9% to 3%. Now, some of that's because they're going to come out with a new smartphone in about a week.
and I'm sure that's going to go like gangbusters.
And the number one smartphone, of course, Android, with compared to Apple's 26%. You want to take a guess what Android had?
20.
40?
Oh, wait. Was it 44?
44%.
Yeah.
Almost
I believe
half.
the iPhone 4 was the number one handset, but there are so many Android handsets that
That's the problem,
it's
right?
The overall, yeah.
Right. In
And I
fact,
still
actually,
think-
that's kind of telling because if there were just one Android handset, it would have outsold Android. But because there's so many of them,
Android.
Android.
That's good. I like that.
Anti-Android.
Where's Nokia on this list? Well, worldwide, they're still
Worldwide.
number one, right?
Yeah, for now. It's not going to go well.
In Q3 2010, the worldwide smartphone market grew an impressive 95% over the same quarter a year ago, almost doubled to 80.9 million shipped units. Nokia had 1/3 share, 33% of the market. Worldwide, Apple 17%, a little bit ahead of RIM worldwide as well, which was 15%. Of course, Apple finally ousted RIM in the U.S. with its 26%.
And I think didn't we find out last week that Apple is now the number 4 handset maker in the world that by units, which is not smartphones but just phones, just because they're shipping so many iPhones, or at least shipped so many iPhone 4s.
Yep.
So,
Worldwide, yep.
yeah, it's a lot of good numbers for the company that was told you can't just walk right in and sell a phone. That's pretty amazing. I mean, Android's got a lot of platform momentum, but Apple. It's kind of, remember where they were? I mean, 4 years ago they were nowhere.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean,
of
to
course,
go
so
from
was
zero to 4 in 3 or 4 years. Right. So Nokia, this is worldwide shipments of smartphones, actually of all mobile phones, it looks like. It doesn't say smartphones. Top 5 mobile phone vendors in third quarter 2010. 110 million phones in 3 months for Nokia. 71 million for Samsung. LG 28 million. Then Apple, 14 million. Then RIM, 12 million. So that's of all phones. So that's pretty good. Number 4 handset manufacturer.
Crazy.
That's amazing, really.
I remember back in the day when the iPod was number 4, or the iTunes Store was number 4. And we talked about that.
And I think in many ways you can credit Apple with the creation of a smartphone market. I mean, Nokia really dominated that small market a few years ago.
The problem was the old smartphones just weren't very smart.
They weren't that smart.
They were pretty stupid.
I remember my N95.
It was like, I remember having this conversation with a friend of mine. It was like, I hate my Trio. Like I had a Trio before my iPhone. I hated my Trio. I just hated everything else more. It was like that was the whole thing. Is I just hate everything else more than my Trio. And the iPhone was the first one that I actually,
my
really
Trio,
liked.
I used to say, oh, do I need to take my phone with me when I'm going out? And the iPhone is like, ooh, I get to take the iPhone with me.
It's not even like I just don't go anywhere. I mean, like I don't.
Yeah.
Hey, at least bring your iPod Touch.
I don't go swimming with it, but that's about
with
it.
you. Police in Delaware are still trying to track down a creep who tried to lure a 12-year-old into his van as she waited to be picked up outside the Stanton Middle School. She told police a man in a white van pulled into the school driveway and said, "Get in the van." That's when she whipped out her iPod Touch and put it up to her ear as if she were making a phone call. The man sped off. Just keep something with you.
Yeah.
Even if it's just an iPod Touch.
Yeah, those guys are gonna.
They can't
flee
tell.
the scene,
They don't know
right?
the difference, right?
Yeah, that was smart. It's
Really
so
smart. Really
Yeah.
smart. Nice, happy story. Netbook demand, according to AppleInsider.com, tumbling as 80% of tablet buyers want iPads. New survey from ChangeWave, 3,000 customers interviewed, asked about devices they plan to buy in the next 90 days. Results show that 14% of laptop buyers looking at a netbook. That's 10% below the peak in June 2009. However, a lot of them, let me see if I can find the actual numbers, are now looking at tablets.
I think, again, when we look at the use of an average user, someone who's working in business, someone who's working in school, and how they're using their devices, I think that tablets in general and the iPad specifically at the moment, I think the iPad right now is 94% of sales on tablets, that's just a great answer for a lot of people.
Of those polled, 80%, 80, said they're most likely to purchase an iPad, 8% the Playbook, 3% the Galaxy Tab. I'm surprised that RIM's Playbook has such top-of-mind awareness. 8% is a lot higher than the
A lot
Galaxy
of BlackBerry
Tab.
fans out there. I've talked to people who say the same thing.
But
that
the
they're
Playbook
like,
doesn't even exist.
No, it doesn't exist. But that's good marketing, and that's some brand loyalty there. And I totally understand that. But you look at those numbers and you think a lot of people who were interested in buying a netbook, what they wanted is like a computer to leave on their living room coffee table to look up things on IMDb or whatever. And that stuff you don't need a computer for.
Yep. Larry and Sergey said that when they were starting to look for a CEO for Google, they thought about Steve Jobs. Steve had already returned to Apple, I think, at that time. So that was a pipe dream. I don't think Steve would have even considered it. Would Steve Jobs have been better for Google than Eric Schmidt? I don't think so. There's no product there. What is the product?
That wouldn't have worked.
Wouldn't have worked.
No.
Steve, I mean, for whatever you think of Steve, and of course I think most people admire him greatly, and accepting that he's not a perfect human, he is a flawed human, but admire him greatly. But whatever you think about him, he's a product guy first and foremost. I mean, he's all about the hardware, right?
Well, and all about complete control of the hardware and how it's going to come out and what it's going to look like, and that has done really well for Apple. I mean, I think that Steve, his dream job is what he's doing. We're coming back to the company that kicked him out, and being able to show that he was right.
We'll take a little Sesame Street break, and then our picks of the week coming up. Alex Lindsay is here, and so is Jason Snell from Macworld Magazine, and apparently so are Elmo and his friends from Sesame Street. There's an app for that. Hit it, guys.
Yes, my friends, the iPogo can do anything.
Anything?
Oh, yeah. If you want to comb your cat, there's an app for that. If you have to fix a flat, there's an app for that. Need a word that rhymes with gnat? Gnat, rat, rat, rat. Or a place to hang your hat? Got a chimp who likes to chat? There's an app, there's an app, there's an app.
You gotta love how Sesame Street has stayed up with the times, right? I mean, They just but you know, they're speaking to kids like Malachi, your son.
He loves Sesame Street.
And he knows about apps. He uses an iPad.
He knows a lot about apps.
It speaks to him as much as it does to adults.
Yeah, he's, you know, it's surprising. I thought that he would just watch movies on it, you know, on his iPad, and or my old iPad. I had a Wi-Fi one that I gave him. And the thing that he uses the most is loopseg.
Loop? I don't even know what that is.
It's this. I mean, literally, it makes me almost insane. He uses it so much.
Is it a game?
Yeah, it's
it's annoying sounds?
Well, no, what it is if you let me see if I can turn this up a little bit.
Of course, a kid would find the most annoying sound thing.
Right. So what it does is you can actually set up pretty, you know.
Oh, it's like a synthesizer.
It's like a synthesizer, and you can, you know, set up.
Oh, no wonder. That's cool.
Sequencer, and of course, what he does is just he makes designs on the sequencer.
Hey, don't knock it. I interviewed Brian Eno, and who was the king of like the Roland or the Emu or something, and he said, you know, I'm an art student. I'm not a musician. I just drew designs, and the music followed.
Right, and so so what he does, and this is actually a really complex.
Don't knock it.
Yeah, and so
one more video before we get to our picks of the week. This could be your pick if you want it to be.
I'm trying to.
Can you stop it?
There we go.
This is the geekiest marriage proposal ever from MacGasm. This is on YouTube. Watch and learn. Frank has been in love with his girlfriend, Casey, for many years. On October 24th, he decided to finally pop the question. He planned a surprise proposal in Central Park. His tech-savvy friends helped him pull it off. Hidden cameras and special iPhone apps were used. So there's Casey, Frank's girlfriend. There's Nadia, the accomplice. And they're all videoing this. Camera A, camera B, C. There's Frank. He's getting in a rowboat. He's rolling out to the center of the lake in Central Park. There are cameras everywhere. Poor Casey has no idea what's going on.
It's time to go.
I'm standing by.
I'm in position. All right, go ahead and make the call.
Okay, a band now is coming out on the bridge. Casey's starting to wonder what's going on. She doesn't know if Frank is involved.
Okay, the band's go.
Casey's looking around. She's just puzzled, but doesn't yet know what's about to happen.
When the night has come,
it's Casey's favorite song.
And the land is dark.
So maybe she's starting to get suspicious. She's singing along. She's digging it.
The only light we see.
Her boyfriend, meanwhile, under the bridge in a rowboat. She can't see him.
I won't be afraid. Oh, I won't be
Pretty good band.
Just as long as you.
Now they've got 4 cameras, so we're seeing this from every angle. This is a multi-camera shoot, and they're all iPhones.
Darling, please stand by me. Oh yeah, stand by me.
She's singing along. She's
Won't
digging
you
it.
Stand by me. If the sky,
all right, come on out.
We look upon.
Now he's rowing out from under the bridge. He's right behind Casey. She doesn't see him yet.
Should crumble to the sea.
Casey, down here.
I won't cry. I won't cry.
Hi.
What are you doing here?
It's been 2 years. I don't want to wait anymore. I'm afraid I'm going to fall in the water. Will you marry me?
Yes! Yes! Yes!
That's a pretty happy fiance. Okay. I get in tears in my eyes. He threw the ring up. She catches it, and the crowd on the bridge applauds. Meanwhile, all the friends are crying, but they've got it all on video.
That's pretty gutsy to throw it up.
Isn't that about the sweetest thing you ever saw? She's running down to him. He's rowing in. Okay, that's pretty cute. Now they're rowing out together. And it's all on YouTube for everybody to see. That is yeah.
It's getting a little dusty in here.
Yeah, it's kind of beautiful. Isn't that sweet?
That's great.
And I love it that they got all their friends out there with iPhones. iPhones to,
I was like, I want that
to
app.
tape it. Yeah, did you see it? Said camera one,
app, yeah, I was like,
it was. I wonder what the app was.
I know.
That was pretty impressive.
Custom apps. Oh, it's fake. Someone said it's fake.
It's fake. You think it's one of them commercials? Oh, please say it's not a commercial.
Was Atomic Tom the band playing there?
Yeah, maybe.
Mash those up.
God, I fall for him every time.
No, that was great. Come on. Even if it was
inspiring.
Hey, let's take a break. Come back with our picks of the week. Before we do, though, I want to mention our friends at audible.com, a great place to go if you are looking to listen. Yeah, I know you listen to podcasts. Wouldn't you like to listen to reading now? Oh, man, I am in the Gunslinger, the 7 books of Stephen King's Gunslinger saga. There's so many. They call me Baba Booey, Gary Delbate's biography of Baba Booey himself, Howard Stern's show producer.
I'm listening to 1,000 Hills.
1,000 Hills? What's that about?
It's really good. It's really hard to listen to at times, but it's about. So I'm doing all this work in Rwanda. So I'm reading all these books or listening to all these books on Rwanda, and this one's about Paul Kagame, and coming to that, but the whole process. But it's really. Wow. But here's the thing: it is the stuff of movies. I mean, it is like what happened. Where they basically. He spent his whole life in Uganda, and they literally built an army inside of the Ugandan army of all these Rwandans. And then there was just one day where everyone was in the UN or whatever in New York, and one of the generals, the Rwandan general, just sent all the Uganda force to the southern border and invaded.
Oh,
I mean, to revolt against the thing, and it's like a Jason Bourne kind of thing, because now Kagame's
true.
It's all true, and it's all and I got to say, what's interesting is the audio quality isn't very good. It sounds like there's two different. It's not the quality of the audiobook, but I just find myself riveted by this story of how this is all happening. Anyway, it's
what's it called?
It's called 1,000 Hills.
1,000 Hills,
and it's what I'm and it's and I found myself.
Chocolate Wars, the 150-year rivalry between the world's greatest chocolate makers.
A little lighter.
See, you can listen, Real War or Chocolate Wars. It's your choice.
You could really, go either way, but the thing is that what was funny is I had to drive last week back and forth because I was taking this class with Big Nerd Ranch in San Francisco.
So you had a lot of driving.
And I had a lot of driving, and I was looking forward to it. Every day I was like, I get to listen to another hour and a half of.
Oh, I do too. I now drive my kid to school just because I want to listen.
Right.
If I can get an hour a day listening in, I'm really happy. I used to get 2 hours with a commute. This is I envy you if you have a long commute. How about this one? You had me at Woof. How dogs taught me the secrets of happiness. There's something for everybody. Fiction, nonfiction, history. I listen to a lot of history, and I really enjoy that. Science fiction. Look, there's something new in the Wheel of Time series. There's all sorts of stuff here. Audible, 75,000 books, and I'm going to give you your first one absolutely free. I've been really tempted to get the Baroque cycle. Quicksilver is the first book of the Baroque cycle, but they have all 3 of them: King of the Vagabonds and Odalisque, which these are Neil Stephenson's completely opaque novels that I've been dying to read, but I can't get through them. But see, sometimes with an audiobook, you can listen to a book that you couldn't read otherwise.
My father listens to audible.com constantly, and he's listening to, I guess, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and he is just
great.
like totally into it.
If you haven't read the Millennium Saga, listen. It's and don't go see the movie until you've listened to it on Audible. Audible's like a movie in your mind. I really find that because I'm listening there's some sort of different brain processing, and I actually have a strong visual connection with what I'm listening to. And sometimes I'll see a movie and I'll go, wait a minute, wait a minute, I read that. There's just something in there. You've got to try audiobooks if you hadn't. Your first one free if you go to audible.com/MacBreak. What's going to happen is you'll sign up for the Gold account. That's a book a month. The subscription is really the most affordable way to participate in Audible. So try the Gold account, a book a month. There's a Platinum account, 2 books a month. Point being, your first book and your first month are free, and you can cancel at any time, and you keep the book no matter what. So it's really a free book that's yours to keep forever. Audible.com/MacBreak. The only challenge at this point is which book? I love, you see I'm at credits 0. I've expired, and I'm just waiting because my next book is going to be the Keith Richards autobiography, Life.
I've really moved my whole like now when I buy if I'm buying a book that I'm going to read, it's usually a technical manual, and it's on a Kindle.
Right.
It's on either my Kindle or the iBookstore, and mostly Kindle because a lot of them aren't available on the iBookstore. But or I'm listening to it on Audible, but there's not a lot of in between anymore. I
can't wait to listen to this one. Johnny Depp narrates Keith Richards' Life.
Oh, yeah.
You got it. I mean, that's one you're not going to be able to put down.
Is that not awesome? That was such a great idea. Whoever thought of that.
No, it's brilliant.
Gold star for you.
Anyway, you get the idea. Audible.com/MacBreak. Your first one's free. You can tell, I think by now, that we're all Audible fanatics. We cannot get enough Audible. Time for our picks of the week. Jason, I'll let you start. Gosh, you probably see every piece of hardware and software out there. What's your favorite these days?
Oh, well, I'm gonna go with the 11-inch MacBook Air.
Yep.
I think that's the only the right thing to do. I got it right here. I don't do a lot of audiobooks because I'm a bus commuter. I bus in from Marin County into downtown San Francisco. So this thing actually fits. I can open it up in the bus seat and I can type, which I can't do with the iPad. I like it better than the 13. The 13 Air is nice, but the 11, that super small size and the full-size keyboard, you know, it's the most interesting laptop Apple's made in a long time. I'm really happy with it. I think that the SSD makes it fast, so the flash storage in it. It's even though it's got a slow processor, it's got good graphics card and it's got the fast storage, and that sort of compensates. If you're editing high-def video, it's probably not for you, but if you're writing and doing email and stuff like that, great little system, super light, easy to carry around. And then in the genre of kids games on the iPad, my kids love Cookie Doodle.
Cookie Doodle.
Seen Cookie Doodle and Cake Doodle, where you basically touch on the screen and you roll out your dough, and then you choose cookie cutters, and then you decorate them, and then you eat them all on the screen. It's hilarious, and my kids cannot get enough of
great.
Cookie Doodle and Cake Doodle.
It's free? No, it's 99 cents.
99 cents.
Yeah, looks awesome. And you even get a recipe if you want to make the cookies.
Yeah. You get a recipe and you can roll out the dough, and it's got different shapes. And the cake, you can choose the layers and you can put on all the frosting. And I don't even know where my wife heard about it from somebody. And my kids are obsessed with Cookie Doodle and Cake Doodle.
And it's low fat.
It is 0 calories.
You cannot get fat on Cookie Doodle.
My son plays one, and now I can't even remember the name of it. I think I downloaded it randomly. That's Jello. Like you build Jello, and then you put little treats in the Jello, and then it bounces around your iPad, and you can bend it and push it. And that's the other.
I have to say, I mean, in hindsight, it's obvious, but the kid market for touch is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, he's just completely fluid. And my daughter, who's only a year and a half, she fights with him over the iPhone. She wants the...
I will second Jason's vote for the MacBook Air. In fact, Dvorak was here for Twit, and he poo-pooed the whole thing and then I said, well, why don't you use it for the show? And he almost stole it. He said, this thing is really fast. I said, yeah, it's amazing. The SSD makes a huge difference. He says, it's really light. It's really... He fell in love with it.
Yeah.
He said, and I think this may be the case for me, it's the best laptop notebook of any kind I've ever used.
Yeah, I'm resisting the
I love it.
The temptation.
Pardon.
It's really good. I mean, I got talked out of giving it 5 mice out of 5 by my lab director. Well, I was in a moment of weakness and I hadn't slept, and the Giants were in the playoffs, and I was very confused. And he said, there's probably going to be one with a little bit better processor at some point. I'd say that Ultimate Edition. I don't know, the $999.
I don't think you need it. I don't even think you need 4 gigs of RAM.
$999, such a great deal if you've got. I mean, don't make it your main system, but I mean, wow.
It depends what you do. But if you are a writer for a magazine, it could be your main system.
It could be, and it'll even drive a big external monitor. And I'm doing National Novel Writing Month this month.
Are you doing
NaNoWriMo.org, and I'm writing to write 50,000 words in 30 days. I am doing some on my commute on the bus.
Yep.
And on my old 13-inch Apple laptop, it was going to be really hard to do it. And I've got the 11 MacBook Air now, and it's coming. I wrote a couple thousand words this morning.
It's the sports car of computers. It's just fantastic.
Except not fast, but
But fast enough. I mean, you don't find it. I don't wait for it. I'm not waiting. One bounce to launch anything. I'm not waiting for it.
That's just where the sports car analogy falls.
It's more like the Mazda MX-3 or something.
Yeah, it's a rotary. It's a wankle, but it's okay. So, are you using Scrivener for NaNoWriMo?
I am using Scrivener. Scrivener 2 just came out on
Monday.
I'm full of picks. That came out, on Monday, and it is great from Literature and Latte, literatureandlatte.com. Great writing software with lots of organizational features. And I know Andy Ihnatko, I introduced it to him. I'm going to claim to fame.
Yep.
And he loves it and writes all his columns in that now, and it's really good.
It's Andy's honorary pick. He's not with us, but I know if he were here, he would be picking Scrivener 2.0.
Scrivener 2.
Came out on Monday. It is a $25 upgrade for you Scrivener users. I paid for it immediately.
And if you do NaNoWriMo and you win, you get, I believe, 50% off if you can prove that you were a winner. So,
that's awesome. Yeah, he's a big supporter, I know, of NaNoWriMo. Alex, your pick of the week.
So, should I talk about this?
Anything you want.
Okay, I'm going to talk about 2 things.
When he says this, he's pointing at a stuffed animal.
Of the animal. Okay, this is the Leo gave me this to test.
I gave him an assignment.
I had an assignment, which was to take this Woogie. It's
called a Woogie. It's from
Woogie,
Griffin.
And to take it home and have it kid tested and parent approved. And so I took it home, and I have to admit that I just didn't think it was really going to work. And my son is obsessed with it. It was actually a little bit of a challenge. I had to sneak in and steal it to bring it over to the show, and I'm going to bring it right back before he notices it's gone. He loves this thing. And as a parent, my thing is that I like putting my iPad in something that my 3.5-year-old can throw. The problem is he's gotten into the habit, if I give him the iPhone and then I tell him I want it back, he just looks at me with a flat face and just goes, and just throws it at me. You know, like, if you want it, I'll throw it at you. And he knows that he's going to get a reaction. And so now he can throw this, and I'm not too worried about he hasn't killed the phone yet. This is my old iPhone. And he just loves it. And even if I take the iPhone out, he wants it in his bed when he goes to bed. Like, he wants it as his, like, pillow. This has become like his new little friend. And so while I thought that it was silly, he doesn't call it a Woogie. He calls it the octopus. But
and now it has a little jack, so it's
got a jack and has a little speaker. Yeah.
And then you squeeze the arms or something? I mean, is there a game?
No, it's just that it's a big sack with arms that holds it. It has a Sesame Street game, but the Sesame Street game is kind of like it's like a cheap game that then wants to upgrade you to other stories, and I was just like, bah. The game
itself, you can use any game. It doesn't matter.
But it doesn't matter. You just play with it. He just plays with the iPhone. I mean, he doesn't do anything with it other than just does iPhone apps, and the touching through the plastic works totally fine. And so he, as I said, he loves it. It keeps the iPhone dry, not too messy, and in one piece. And I was
only
kind of
$20. I mean, it's
$20. It's a great little thing. Don't bother with the application, the Sesame Street application. I mean, it's cute, but it's kind of like a low-grade Dr. Seuss. I mean, the Dr. Seuss stuff is done so well that either you do it that well or don't bother, as far as I'm concerned, with kid stuff.
Right.
Hire whatever company is doing that and just do it that way, because it's just totally tight. And so I don't find that to be particularly useful, but I do think that I'm a little concerned when it runs out of batteries that it's going to be a pain to change the batteries in it, for the speaker. But outside of that, it's great. So Woogie, that's my pick. Now the more adult pick. I was showing you this earlier.
This is sweet, but this is for somebody who does audio production of some kind.
This is, and I here's the deal. I've been laying off on people. I've been doing lots of free picks and less expensive picks, and this is the kind of thing that I really just get super excited about. So this is Sound Device. So Sound Devices is almost all the equipment we buy when we do audio. Almost all the equipment we buy is Sound Devices because two reasons. One is the preamps are just gorgeous compared to the crud that most of these things have. Really, really warm preamps that just make mics sound better. Secondly, they have a limiter in it that is just short of unclippable. I mean, you can clip the mic, but you're not going to clip this interface. How many times have we dealt with you turn it up a little too high and now you're clipping everything going into your recording when you're trying to do a voiceover or something else?
Looks like it has pretty good meters on it too. So
high resolution meters. Yeah. You have a lot of control.
So the idea is you plug XLR mics or analog audio into this. It turns it into USB or digital. So you could have. You can actually have digital out.
You can do digital out. Those are analog outs, so you can just use it to as a preamp for
as a mic preamp.
As a mic
but
preamp.
You could also connect it to your laptop USB, and now you've got two mics. It's a little mini mixer.
You can
also have a mic and regular audio too. Right?
Yeah. So the other thing you can use this for is it'll take USB power too. So you can just plug a USB. You can just plug it in.
It doesn't need power.
Well, if you have USB power, but you don't need another power supply. So now what you can do is use that as your preamp to or just a mixer for two mics. And it's not a mixer. I got to tell you, I mean, you don't get it until you start using really good preamps of how big of a deal these things are. And it is, and then you have and the thing about Sound Devices.
You also have aux out. So if, for instance, you could use this instead of a Beach Tech. For a camera, right? You could connect XLR mics.
Yep.
and then run them into the camera's mini jack, if you have a Canon 5D Mark II, for instance.
If that's all you were doing, then you would use. They have a mobile pre that does that.
Mobile that does that.
It's just designed to do that kind of thing. This one is kind of like does a lot of what the mobile pre does. It's a little bit bigger, and it gives the big thing is it gives you this great USB interface. So this is like the Cadillac of USB interface. It is.
It's priced like the Cadillac.
Too. I think it's. I believe. I want to say it's $650.
But that sounds like a lot. But a good A to D converter, is going to be that
and
much
it's solid.
Anyway.
I mean, the thing is, this is Sound Devices. Sound Devices is the Mac of sound equipment. So if you're looking for super high quality, well built, everything. It's actually made in the U.S. I mean, they make them all.
Nice.
It is super high quality. They sent me that to take a test, and I'm not giving it back. John's going to have to.
I'm searching right now for it. I
because
think I might want this too, just for field recording.
Well, yeah. Well, for field recording, then you move into a whole. If you want to do it through your laptop, of course, once you get the sound devices, you're going to see things like the 702T, the 744T. We have a 788T.
Yeah, but combine this with a MacBook Air, and you've got a nice little podcast setup, or
and that's we absolutely what we use for on the road. Now this is
you say this is studio only. This is not a mobile.
Well, no, you can take it. You can definitely take it on the road.
It weighs as much as a MacBook
but you can.
Air.
You definitely. if you want the highest quality audio going into your Mac to do your online stuff on the road, this is it. This is the highest quality you're going to find. I haven't seen
instead of an M audio or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
And the thing is that once you get used to good preamps, you listen to everything else. You plug it into all the other things, and you're like, it's just and you just have all the control that you want. You have, it's just the headphone jack is like, the headphone outputs are really good. You have tons of control. You saw the control over the dip switches on the bottom.
Yeah.
I mean, they have packed as much as you can possibly pack into this little square. So if you really want a bar none best solution to interface with your computer, I think the USB Pre is the one to go for. And we're really sold on it. As I said, we have a 552 and a 788T and a 702T, and we've drunk the Kool-Aid, the sound device's Kool-Aid, but we just haven't found anything else to be in the same ballpark for what we do. The 788T, which is much more expensive, but it's what we use in the field. That takes 8 XLR ins. It is the finest piece of audio equipment ever made, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it is. So that's at a different level.
I'm kind of sad that I do so much everything I do now has to have video, because it's so much easier to really do a great audio show in the field.
Yeah.
But now if I want to do cameras I
got to tell you though, even when we're doing when we do video though, we still have the 788T, because I can reroute I can take my inputs and then reroute them to any output that I want. I use it as the in between. That's how we kind of control all of our audio. That's our portable mixer is the 788. But as I said, the USB Mobile Pre, if you're looking for the bar none, I want the best interface. I just haven't seen anything else like it, and I have almost all of them. Like I have the Shure, I have the Centrance, I have the M Audios, I have the M Boxes, I have I have just about all of the ones that you can get, because this is something we deal with constantly, and this is awesome. So anyway, that's all I have to say.
Good recommendation. Thank you, Alex Lindsay. I kind of have already mentioned one of my picks, but I'll give you another one, and it's not really a pick, but just to get your awareness up. I was going to mention the Scrivener 2 has come out. Sophos has announced and has released a free antivirus for the Mac. Now, I still don't think you need an antivirus for the Mac yet, but Sophos is a great company. They make very high-end security solutions, and if you feel like you want an antivirus for the Mac, I can't see any reason to buy a Norton or an Antigo solution when you can get something from Sophos. So if you do want an antivirus for the Mac, I don't think really there's a lot going on with the Mac world yet, although we do know there are holes, there are exploits. I think we're now at this point we're being protected merely because we're such a small percentage of the total user universe. Might not be a bad idea to download this. Haven't used it yet. I'm not really recommending it. Just pointing it out. It's out. It came out today, and it's free. Do you, Jason? Does Macworld make a recommendation for an antivirus for?
We go back and forth. I think we've tested a lot of them. It's very hard because if you don't have a virus in the wild, you can't test it. You install it hoping that it'll catch the next virus when it comes. I got to be honest, I don't.
I don't either.
I don't run anything. I did turn off the auto open items in Safari checkbox.
Yeah, for sure.
Safari,
for sure.
So that you know where you're getting it from, and you're saying yes, I do want to open it. But beyond that, I think for most people, it's an extra layer of security, which is great, but I don't personally, run any of it.
If it weren't Sophos, I would, I would probably not mention it, but they are really a great company. They do good stuff. And,
there are a lot of good packages out there. It's just the question is, how do you test it, and when will you need it, and will you ever need it? And it's always going to be the case that the Mac is going to be a smaller target, and that if you really want to take out a large swath of people and turn them into your minions and do spamming and other things, you're going to use PCs because there are more of them.
I would say that the only reason you might worry on a Mac is for something called a spear phishing attack, which is a targeted attack. if for instance your company uses Macs in the front office and a bad guy wants to attack your company and knows that, then they're going to attack the Mac directly with a spear phishing attack. But I think you're right. I don't think we're seeing general Mac viruses yet or ever until Apple has a larger market share.
Well, the question is, does the iOS close some of that down as well?
You know what, I used to say that, and there are so many known flaws, and you see you know that pwn to own contest every year in Canada, and every year apples are cracked first, usually through Safari. You know, it's just it is absolutely a vulnerable topic, a target. I don't think there's any question it's a vulnerable target. It's just merely a question of, you know, does anybody really want it? And it's so much easier to go after the 95% of the market.
Sometimes I feel like that it must be secure because I have to give my password to my iPhone more than
too often.
I mean, it's just like this constant barrage of really, and I keep on feeling like I should change my password to make it simpler because it's so complicated. It's a heck of a hash, and so it's like this complicated.
ESET, my one of my sponsors on the radio show, actually they sponsor us here too, is doing testing a Mac antivirus as well, cybersecurity for Mac. They're a good company. They would be another company worth looking at, but again, only until you feel like there's an issue. I just think it's if you're in a business or you're somebody that might be targeted, these spear phishing attacks are a little scary because what they are is they're targeted emails sent at a company that the person wants to break into. And so in that case, you're just as vulnerable because if they know you're using Macs, they're going to go after you, on the Mac platform. And there's certainly plenty of attacks.
Right. Definitely if you have things that you're really concerned about.
You know who you are if you're a target for spear phishing, I think.
Yeah.
You know who you are.
And you probably have somebody thinking about it.
Hopefully. I know who you are. You're Jason Snell, editor-in-chief of Macworld Magazine. Thank you for being with us.
It's always great to see you.
It is always a pleasure, Leo.
Anything you want to plug? You got plans for Macworld Expo, I'm sure. Any
Macworld
events?
Expo at the end of January, macworld.com, iPad app hopefully coming out in the next month or two.
We'll make that our pick of the week for sure. In fact, why don't you come on that week when you want to, when you know it's coming out, let us know.
That would be great.
Macworld.com. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Go Giants. I guess we don't have to say
Giants.
go anywhere.
They went.
They went. They came. They saw.
They whooped some butt.
They whooped some butt. They went home. But I'll see you at the parade on Wednesday.
Yes, I'll be there.
11 a.m. Alex Lindsay is at the Pixel Corps. Now, here's the deal. Pixelcorps.com is a place to go if you'd like to know more about his guild of multimedia artists who are learning and working together. And Pixelcorps.tv is a place to go for all those great podcasts.
One of our members is just moving to New Zealand.
Oh, that's neat.
He's going to work for Weta.
Yeah, Weta is like the company, and with The Hobbit going into pre-pro, I imagine he's
pretty psyched.
A little bit to do down there.
Yeah, just a little bit.
You have you're going to rename MacBreak? Are you?
I don't know yet. I mean, we're just playing. We're playing with how to brand things and everything else as we go into next year. So we haven't made a decision yet. If people have ideas, they should send them to us. But we're trying to think about, we're just thinking about the overall flow of everything right now. We are having, by the way, Gear Media Tech is going to be covering AES. It's right next to us, so I figured. So AES is the big, it's like the big audio convention.
Audio Engineering Society.
Yeah, sure, exactly. And so we're going to go over there and do our typical man on the street kind of wander around and look at things that we think is cool. So that should be coming out sometime next week. I'll record a whole bunch of them this weekend.
Pixelcorps.tv to find out.
Pixelcorps.tv, and what you're looking for is Gear Media Tech. It'll be on YouTube and Pixelcorps.tv and iTunes.
Oh, well, that makes it easy.
Yeah, it's easy.
It's all there. And your last thing was a SIGGRAPH, which was must have been a long.
We covered IBC as well. So IBC, that's the NAB of Europe. So we did a bunch of stuff that's inside the black box, and then the that you're seeing there, but yeah, there's Gear Media Tech.
It's all there.
And then gear. And then look for the big gear. And we covered IBC, so a whole bunch of cool stuff. We've gotten to the habit. We used to berate you with like 30 or 40 episodes because we record a lot of them really quickly, and we've gotten so good at them. Well, now what we do is we tie them up into 3 or 4 different little segments in one episode, so that it's like all the things around mixers or all the things around. And here's the funny thing is now with Gear Media Tech, when I'm looking at buying stuff, I'm like, man, I'm pretty sure we covered that in NAB. I find myself referring back to our own videos.
Very cool. Thank you, Alex Lindsay. Thank you, Jason Snell. Thank you all for being here. Now get back to work. Break time's over.